Hey guys, welcome to Turbo 360. In this tutorial, we're going to build a t-shirt store where we can upload t-shirts and sell them on the site. It's going to look like this. This is the theme we're going to use. And we are going to include a checkouts flow. So you will be able to actually process purchases on this t-shirt store. We will be using PayPal for that. So you're going to need a PayPal account, and I think it has to be a business account, which is free. So if you want to follow along with the payments processing, make sure you have a business account on PayPal, and again, that's free. And we will include a payments integration where visitors on your website can actually purchase actual t-shirts if they also have a PayPal account. So we're going to be using Node.js and Express on the web stack, so make sure you have Node.js installed. If you don't, head over to nodejs.org and install. Typically I use the LTS, but if you want to try the current version, that's fine too. But the LTS is usually more stable, and you're going to need an account on Turbo 360. This is free. We're going to be doing our hosting on here. This is a free hosting platform where you can deploy your projects, your Node.js projects. This is also a theme that you're going to have to download. There will be a link included to this theme on the description of this video. So if you're watching on YouTube, just head over to the description and you'll see a download link where you can download this theme. And I do also have a couple images prepared. So you'll actually see two download links. You're going to see one for the theme and one for separate images that I prepared for our own website to make it a t-shirt website instead. So that should be everything we need. So let's head over to our terminal and get started. So open up your terminal. I am going to change directory to my desktop where I do most of my coding work. And let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to check my Node version. I'm running 12.18, so make sure you have a version like that or higher. My NPM version is 6.14.8. I'm going to install the Turbo command line interface. So sudo npm install global for -g for global and Turbo CLI. So the Turbo CLI is our tool that we use to basically interface with our Turbo environment. So when we need to deploy our projects or a couple other things for our projects on Turbo, we do that through the CLI. So we will be basically using this to deploy our projects. The Turbo CLI version I'm running is 0.39.3, so make sure you have this version or higher. If you have a previously installed version from maybe a previous tutorial and it's lower than this, go ahead and run this update and make sure you have an up-to-date version so that we have all the same functionality. So that should be everything we need to get going for today's tutorial at least. And again, make sure you have the theme downloaded as well as the images directory. So these are the themes. This zip file here, and this is the images directory right here. So make sure you have these two zip files, and these are all the assets we will use for today's project. And I think for the entire project, this is all we're going to need. So let's get started. So first thing we need to do is actually create the project. So we're going to use the Turbo CLI to do that. So we do Turbo, new, and then I'm going to call it t-shirt store. So what we're doing here is we're scaffolding a new project using the Turbo CLI, which will create for us a Node Express project that works out of the box. This gives us a very bare bones, stripped down, simple Node Express project with a couple configuration options already set up for us, like the templating engine. The static assets directory is already assigned. A couple other things to make our setup a lot faster and easier. So go ahead and run that, and it should create the new project right here. Don't worry about this. Let's open this up in Visual Studio or whatever text editor you use. Doesn't have to be VS Code. And this is the project, and like I said, this works out of the box, but remember it doesn't have the npm modules installed right away, so we have to do that first. So npm install, and it will install the dependencies. Whoops, cd into the project first, excuse me. So cd into the project, so I forgot to do that, and then run npm install so it can install the dependencies that the project requires to run. And then while that's going on, let's just quickly look through this. So we have our package.json over here where the dependencies are declared. So these are being installed right now. You can see it's not very many. And a couple other run scripts. So the npm serve and the npm start are the run scripts. We're going to use npm serve because it gives us a dev server, which gives us some console logging, additional console logging for debugging if necessary. And then let's see what else. We have our app.js where we declare our routes, which is happening over here, and we set the paths for those routes. We're going to remove these and replace these with our own routes. We have our routes directory here where the route logic is actually written. So this is where the request response cycles are actually executed, or over here. The public directory is our static assets directory. So this is for our images, JavaScript, CSS, and that's pretty much all we need to know for this project. Also, I forgot to mention, if you're a beginner to Node.js and Express, so let's say you have some JavaScript and general coding background knowledge, you've been doing self-study for a while, a few months on Udemy or YouTube or something like that, this should be a good tutorial to pick up next. But this is not for complete beginners. So if you've never coded before in your entire life, if you're a total beginner to code, I'm going to be moving a bit fast. You might already be lost. So you shouldn't be a total beginner, but you should have some background knowledge in JavaScript and basic coding concepts like what's an array, how to loop through an array perhaps, or things like that. So make sure you understand the basics, and then this should be a good next step. Basically, this is a good position to be in tutorial-wise if you are having a hard time sort of combining a lot of separate concepts into one functional, cohesive project. So that's where this would be right now. If you're already lost and you're too much of a beginner for this, head back to Turbo, and you'll see a lot more beginner tutorials on the tutorials page. And I would suggest beginning with basic Node.js and Express, where I really cover the minutia, all the little details of routing and request and response and middleware and all that stuff. So that's that. Okay, let's run this project to make sure it runs successfully first. So npm run serve. So I'm running that serve script that I pointed out in the package.json. It gives us this output here, telling us to head over to localhost 3000 to actually see the project. And this is the project that was scaffolded for us by using the turbo new command. And this is basically the generic project on Turbo. So just to make sure you understand what you're looking at, we are looking at the views directory with the index.mustache. This is basically the home template, the home HTML file, and it is being served via the index route right here. So like I said, we're going to remove all this and replace it with our own content. So let's go ahead and get that started right now. So first thing we want to do is inside the routes directory, we're going to create a new route. I'm going to call it main.js. Let's remove these other two so it doesn't get in the way, it doesn't create any confusion or anything like that. So in the routes directory, we're going to create a main.js route. And inside the app.js, let's comment all of this out for now. And let's go back to the main.js, and let's go back to the app.js. I'm sorry I'm skipping around, but const main equals require. So we're going to import the main.js route, and then we want to set the path. Tell the app to use it for the home page request, like that. And so now we are connecting our main.js route to the home page request. This means home page, the base path. And then the main route will take over the logic for the home page. Of course, we don't have anything going on here, so let's set that up. So we need to import the Express module. So let's do that. And then we also need to create an Express router. So we have to create the router. And then always do the export right away because it's very easy to forget. And if you do forget, it creates a lot of confusion. Okay, so now let's create our first route. It's going to be a get route, and then it's going to be for the home page. And then we want to install what's called a callback, so that the callback takes 3 arguments. And then for now, we're going to have the argument just send back a string. This is the main route. And that's going to be it. So now keep in mind, this is already connected. We did that in the app.js, so we can just go ahead and run this and test it right away, just to make sure we didn't make any mistakes or forget anything, like maybe this export right here. Very easy to forget. Just go ahead and test it and see what we get. So okay, and this is the main route. Okay, so it's been successfully connected. Let's go ahead and implement our own home page, our own home template. Obviously, this is not going to be the home page, so let's go ahead into our views directory where the templates are stored, and let's go ahead and create our own view called home.mustache. Mustache is a templating engine, which makes it easy for us to inject dynamic data into basically HTML templates. So don't let the extension confuse you. It's really just an HTML file, but it gives us some additional functionality with regard to injecting data into the file so that it can be rendered dynamically based on the data. So that makes life a lot easier. So let's go ahead and create a very, very basic HTML template. And it's just going to have basically one line of text. This is the home template. And let's render this template instead of that string. So we want to render it. So we do render. And then we just pass in the name of the template. So the name of the template is home, which corresponds to this name right here. So we just render that. So let's go ahead and run the serve here. And let's see what we get. So this is the home template. So we are good to go there. And let's go ahead and now start using the actual theme so that we can make it look a little bit nicer than this, right? So so basically all we've done here is we've confirmed that we have taken over the logic of the site. Right? That's the main thing. So we've taken over we have control of over the UI and the request response cycle. And so now we can basically proceed with confidence that everything we do, we control the output. So this home mustache we're going to remove and we're going to replace with the contents of the template. So here's the zip file that you downloaded for the template. If you have downloaded this is what you get. You want to unzip it, and you're going to get this when you unzip it. So go ahead and unzip the template zip file, and you're going to get the theme zip file, and you're going to get this. And if you open this up, you're going to see a couple basically HTML files and static asset directories. So if you open the index.html, you're going to see the UI from the beginning of the video. This will be our homepage. So this is the index.html, right? So what we need to do is we need to open this up in Visual Studio. And this is going to be our HTML. So we just copy the whole thing. So just highlight the whole thing and copy it, and then take it and paste it into the home mustache template. We're just moving it from one file to another file, and that's it. So we just copied and pasted and moved it over into our project. So if we run our project, we will no longer see that that random text that we had before. We're going to see this. So obviously this is all wrong because it doesn't look like that. So what we forgot to do is I didn't really forget, but I'm just pointing out that we need to now import the static assets. So that's all the CSS and JavaScripts and images and all that stuff. So those are also in the template. So if we open up the template, I'm just going to move this over here to make it easier to see. If we open up the template, right, the theme right here, these are the static asset folders, right? So what we need to do is move these folders into our project. So let's open up our project, which is right here. And oh, this is a mistake. Okay, and then if you recall earlier in the video, I pointed out that the static assets are stored in the public directory. So basically, it's pretty simple. We just need to move these over into our public directory, and that's basically it. So let's go ahead and do that. So we just take these guys and move them over like that, and replace what we had before. So now we have the static assets taken from the theme and moved over into our project. And we don't need this images anymore because the theme uses IMG instead. So now the static assets have been moved over. If we run the project, and reload this here, now we have the theme successfully integrated into our project, running on localhost 3000. It's running through our Node Express project setup. So we have successfully integrated the theme. So we're more or less done for it for now, at least. We'll probably add a few more pages later, but that's the process. So we move over the template and then the static assets, and then it's all set up. So now we have some quick, nice looking UI that we can use to set the foundation for the UI of our t-shirt store. So basically we want to change all this into a t-shirt shop. I did have a couple t-shirt images prepared for this as well. It's called the images folder right here, which you should have downloaded from the description of this video as well. We're probably not going to get to this until the next video, but we have all the images and assets we need. Actually, no, I was mistaken. We have a couple other images here that we need. So we will be using this in today's video. So first thing we want to do is take the HTML template here, which is again using the Mustache templating engine, and essentially carve it up into reusable pieces. Organize this into reusable pieces called partials. So for example, this head tag right here is a chunk of HTML. It's a 30-line block of HTML that should be basically reused in all the pages of this website. Basically, it'll be the same thing in all the pages. So we want to put that into a separate file called a partial, which we can reuse throughout the website. So what we want to do in order to make that happen is we head over to our views directory right here, and we create another directory called partials. I'm in the wrong directory, so let's go ahead and do that again. So head over to the views directory and create a partials folder, and inside the partials folder, let's create a new file called head.mustache, and the partials are just more mustache files, so it's really the same concept. And then what we want to do is grab the contents of the head tag and just remove them. This time we're not copying them, we're removing them, we're cutting it, and then we're going to paste it inside the head partial instead. If I run the project, by the way, we can leave the project running, we don't have to keep on restarting. If I run the project now and then reload the home page, you're going to see all the assets are gone, everything. We lost all the styling. That's because we removed the head tag. So we need to restore it by heading back to our home mustache and using the head partial, which we do with these double curly braces. This is now the mustache templating syntax. And then that little caret sign, and then the name of the partial, which is the head partial. So we are now using a partial here to render a chunk of HTML, a block of HTML, which we can reuse throughout the entire site. So if I reload now, we're back in business. Everything looks the same as it did before. If I open the actual source code, you'll see that we have the head tag showing up right here, and that's coming from the partial. So this is a much better way to organize the pieces of your website that should basically stay the same on every page. So if we look over here, the head tag, actually it's not visible so you can't see, but the head tag is the same on every page. this nav bar is going to be the same on every page, right? If you go to another page like the blog or the women's section or the men's section, the nav bar is going to be identical. So this should also be its own partial. So let's go ahead and do that. So we head over to the partials folder and create a new one called nav.mustache. Head back to the home template, and the nav mustache template partial, should be this header right here. So we just cut it. So again, don't copy it, we cut it. And then if I reload, the navigation bar is now gone, right? So if I go back to nav mustache and then I paste it in, we can now use the partial instead. So we just go like that, nav. I'm going to remove this page loader. I don't think we're going to use this really. And then like that. Don't forget that little caret. And so now we're using, again, the Mustache templating engine to take advantage of partials. So let's go ahead and do that. So now if I reload, back in business. Okay, so that looks good. Another partial, if we scroll down to the bottom, is going to be this footer right here. Because again, if you think about it, this footer should show up identical on every page of the site. So that's going to be its own partial. So let's go ahead and change that as well, or add that. So we do head back to the partials and create a new file called footer.mustache. And then in the home template, all the way in the bottom, you'll see a footer section right here. We can just go ahead and grab all of that. So again, don't copy it, we want to cut it. And then paste it into the footer partial. If I reload the home page, just make sure it's gone, which it is. See, I'm on the bottom. And then over here, reuse it like that, or implement it using the partial. And now it's right back here. And last but not least, these JavaScript imports are also going to be a partial because these are going to be the same on every page of the site. So I'm going to create another one called scripts. And we're going to grab these scripts. I'm going to just go ahead and implement this right away. And then just go ahead and make sure it still works. Okay, so everything looks good now. We have our template, our home template, organized into partials, which means when we add more pages, we can just reuse these partials, and it makes things a lot more easy to change. For example, if I want to change one thing on the nav bar, we just have to change one file right here instead of every page. It makes life a lot easier and makes things a lot more efficient. And if you look closely, whatever's left behind from a HTML standpoint is what's only unique to the homepage. So all this stuff is really just unique to the homepage. So when we create new pages, it won't look like this. We'll have different content, but the partial content will be the same. Okay, great. So we have our project ready. It's a little bit better organized now. The next thing I'm going to do is actually deploy it right away, just to make sure it works on the staging environment, because sometimes things will act differently on staging as they do on localhost and vice versa, and that's not good. You want to make sure things are the same. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the server here by doing Control-C. So the server is now off, so make sure the server is off. And we're going to go ahead and deploy this, and if from earlier in the video you may recall, the deployment is on Turbo. So you need an account on Turbo, so don't forget that. So you're gonna, in your CLI, you're going to need to actually log in to your Turbo account. So you do Turbo login. When you enter the password, nothing will show up, so don't be confused by that, but it is working. So I'm logged into my account on Turbo, and then head over to your Turbo account on the actual website. Make sure you're logged into the same account. Head over to your account page. Over here on the left side, you'll see, actually, we're good to go from here. This is your account page where you can set your profile, your bio, things like that. And then over here, we want to create a new site. So I'm going to call it T-shirt store, and then create the site. So what this does here is basically it creates it carves out some space on the hosting environment where you can deploy your project. It's kind of like a dedicated space for your project for hosting. We're going to need the site ID and the API key to actually deploy our project. So let's go ahead and connect our local source code. So we have to connect our code locally to this remote environment that we just created, so it knows where to deploy. So in order to do that, you do turbo connect, and then it's asking me for the site ID, so we just copy the site ID and we just paste it in, and then the API key, and then we just paste that in. And so now we're successfully connected locally. Our project locally is successfully connected to the remote environment that we created over here, so we can deploy. So we can go ahead and send the project itself up to the Turbo hosting environment. That's pretty simple. All you do is turbo deploy, and this will send our project to a staging environment where we can then confirm that it works the same on staging as it does on localhost. And then once we confirm that, we can be confident that everything we do locally should be the same as on the remote environment. So I'm going to go ahead and run this and pause the video while it goes up, because it usually takes about 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, the deployment is up. If it worked for you, you should see this as well. The deploy complete output command. And this gives you a link to the staging environment. So this is your staging URL where you're hosting your project. So this is actually on the internet, it's live. Anyone can visit this. And so if we copy and paste that into our browser, we see the same thing on staging as we do on localhost. And so that's great. That means everything worked. Everything is good to go locally as it is on the remote. And so basically we have confirmed that whatever we do on our computer should work on the staging environment the same way. And so that gives us the proper confidence that we have everything we need to build out the project from an environmental standpoint. So hopefully you got that working on your end as well. I'm going to wrap it up in this video, but in the next video we're going to start customizing this content using the images that you downloaded for this video as well. We're going to add our own t-shirts, change the name, things like that, and we're gonna go ahead and make this website look like our website. So that's it. Hopefully you got everything working. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, welcome back to our Node.js and Express tutorial series here on Turbo 360. In the previous video, we set up our theme integration and deployed to our staging environment to make sure everything works the same on staging as it does on local. We also did some organization with the actual homepage HTML by carving it up into partials for more reusable code. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to start customizing this content for our own t-shirt shop. So we're going to change the logo here, these background images, some of this text, and start reformatting this imagery and these logos and text and things like that for our own fictitious t-shirt store. So let's go ahead and get started. Here I am at the end of the last video. I'm going to run npm run serve to run the local server and make sure everything still works properly on local. So here we have localhost 3000. This is the staging environment, so let's head over to localhost and make sure everything looks the same, which it does. So we're back where we were at the end of the last video. So let's start customizing this content. I'm going to change this logo first. So turn off the server. So let's see. Actually, let's take it a step back even more. Let's change this title over here. Let's change that to our t-shirt store, which I'm going to call the Shirt Shack. So open up the routes folder and the main.js route. And this is the route that's handling our home page request, right? The main route. What we can do is take advantage of the Mustache templating engine by inserting some data into this template so that the template can render dynamic data rather than hard-coded HTML, which is what we're doing right here, hard-coded content within the HTML. So if we have the title tag here in the head partial, it's hard-coded as the template name, the theme name, excuse me. We can change that to what we want. We can literally change it here in the text, but it's better to use the templating engine's capabilities. So let's go ahead and do that. So we want to create an object, a data object here, data, with some key value pairs. So the shirt shack. And then we can insert this data into the render command. And then the template, the templating engine can then inject the key value pairs into the template contents using the templating engine. So this is where we're taking advantage of Mustache right now. Most templating engines work in a similar fashion, so if you like to use something else like Handlebars or another templating engine, they all kind of work the same way. So the key here is title, and the value is the name of the site, the Shirt Shack. So I'm going to change this to double quotes. Okay, so if we head to the mustache partial, we can get this out of here and use the double curly braces. So the double curly braces is the Mustache templating engine syntax, and then we can use the key of the object, the data that's being passed in. So it's title. So here we're grabbing the value title from the data object, which is in this case the Shirt Shack. So if we run that on localhost, and reload, you'll see over here it says the Shirt Shack. So so it worked. So the reason why we want to do it this way, instead of actually just typing it into the HTML, is so that we can propagate the data throughout basically as much content as we want without having to type it into a million different places, a million different locations. So you know, we might have it down here somewhere about the Shirt Shack, or we excuse me, we might have the name show up in a couple different locations, and we want to make that change in one location rather than 25. So let's apply that principle to the logo. It'll make a little bit more sense when we do it for the logo. So this logo is the default logo from the theme itself. We want to replace it with our own logo. So we have a logo prepared from the images folder you downloaded in the previous video. If you didn't download it, it's fine. I'll include another link in this video. So if you look at the description section of this video, you can also download the images directory. But it's the same one from video 1, so it's all the same. Just you can use the first one as well. In that directory, if you open up the project and then the public, the IMG is where all the images are stored. Let's see here. We want to move the images from the images folder. So I did that in the wrong order. This is the images folder that I'm referring to. Excuse me. This is the images folder that I'm referring to. If we open this up, we have two directories. We have BG images and shirts. All of these should go into the project, into the static assets directory. And if we open up the project, that's going to be in the public folder. That's where all the static assets are stored. And then if we open that up, we have an IMG directory. If we open that up, we have all the images that come with the theme. So we're going to want to grab our BG images and shirts and just drop those into here like that. So what we want to do now is replace the logo, which is actually in the BG images folder. So if I open up the BG images folder, I put the logo in here. I called it logo 2. This is really not a good location for it. Let's make this change right now. Let's take this out and put this in the main directory of the IMG. That's really where it should go, so apologize for that. But so in the BG images folder, we took the logo 2 PNG, and we put it out into the top level of the IMG directory of our project. So we have a new logo called Logo 2. It's called the Shirt Shack, and that's going to be the name of our fictitious t-shirt store. And this is the logo we can use in the nav bar. This is the logo that we want to show up over here and down here. So let's go ahead and make that replacement. So what we want to do is find in the nav bar, the nav partial. This is where the logo is actually referenced. What we want to do is take this image path. This period shouldn't really even be here. Take that image path and copy it. Okay, so make sure you have that copied to your clipboard. And then what we want to do is head back to our main.js route, and we want to create a new key called logo, and then we want to insert the path of the logo, the current logo, the one that came with the theme. And so then what we can do is head back to our nav mustache, partial, and then remove that and just do logo instead, like that. And this will make no change. So if I reload, it should be the same, which it is. Now what we want to do is head over to our footer and make the same replacement. So now if I reload and scroll down to the footer, it's going to be the same logo. Nothing changed visually, it should be the same. So now if I go to the main.js route, and instead of logo light, you may recall the name of the new logo is going to be this guy right here. It's called logo-2, like that. So we do logo-2, and that's the new logo that I created just for this project. So if I reload, it should make the replacement over here and down here. So that's the key. You want to make sure you understand why we're using the templating engine, so we can have one declaration which applies to the entire project. And so if we have another logo, or if we want to change the name or whatever, we can do that here, and it will propagate throughout the entire project. So that's one quick way we can take advantage of the templating engine to change the logo and the name and make it our own project. Make it customized for our own project. Let's keep doing that. So let's create a description right here. So I'm going to create a description key. Welcome to the Shirt Shack. We hope you like our beautiful custom designs for t-shirts. If you have a specific request for a design, please feel free to contact us. Okay, so I created a simple description right here. If I go to the footer, you'll see the description contents is all this Latin text over here, showing up right there. We can get rid of this and replace it with the description key, like so. And then here we have the description showing up now. And you may be wondering, well, that only shows up in one spot. Why do we make a whole variable for that? Good question. It actually does show up there's actually a description meta tag in the head tag. So right here. So we can use it over there as well. So let's go ahead and make that adjustment. In the head partial. So we want to get rid of this and replace that with description. And then if I reload the site, we have the description showing up here as well as down here. Great. So if you pay attention to the values that we're updating, you'll notice that these are values that we're updating in the partials, basically values that apply to the entire project, like the name, the logo, the description. Basically, these are essentially global values. These are global variables that we're changing. So what we want to do is make sure that they propagate to all the pages. Right now we only have one page, but if we added more pages, we want to make sure this shows up in all the pages. So luckily Turbo makes it very easy to do. If we turn off the server, what we can do is we can use what's called the context, the Turbo context, which gives us basically the global variables whatever global variables we assign to it on every page render. So it'll make more sense when we actually do it. So what we need to do first is create a new directory in the root level of the project. So if we create a new directory in the root level, let's call it called pages. It has to be called pages. And what we can do is inside the pages directories, we can create these data key value pairs for any pages of the site or the entire site. So inside the pages directory, we're going to create a new file called global. And this is going to be a JSON object because these key value pairs are all JSON objects. So if I just copy this and I paste it in here, basically I've moved the key value pairs from data into the global JSON file. Now these red warnings are because these have to be in double quotation marks, like that. And now those warnings go away and we have valid JSON. So this is now we have a global object assigned in the pages directory to with the key value pairs that we assigned earlier. Now here's where we can use the Turbo context to provide us this global object on every page request. It's actually pretty simple. We can get rid of this and we can create a data object from the context. So this context is passed down to us from the Turbo environment. It provides us the context, and inside this context is anything we put in the pages directory. So the global JSON is inside this context. It's just passed through. So it's automatically in here. What we can do now, what we have to do is go back to wherever we reference the global, the data keys. So I think we did that in 3 locations. The head mustache tag, so we want to do global here. And don't forget the title. So it's passed down to us in the global key. And we also used it in the footer, so that would be global here, as well as the description right here. And we also used it in the nav mustache, so that would be right here. Okay, so make sure you catch those, and then if I run the local server and then head over to localhost 3000, you'll see everything still shows up the same as it did before. So we have our logo, the about down here, and if we check the head tag, just make sure everything is still properly showing up. Let's say you want to make a small change down here. We hope you like our beautiful custom designs for t-shirts. Let's say here you want to include the email, so feel free to contact us. You can just do it in this global JSON at t-shirtshack@gmail.com. Okay, and then if I reload, now it's showing up. So, and it also shows up in the head tag description right here. So this is a much better way to handle the data, at least for the global configuration, making this much cleaner. You want to keep these routes lean and clean so that it's easier to make changes and it's less confusing code. This is also cleaner separation of concerns. Basically what that means is this file only handles one responsibility, which is maintaining the key value pairs for the global configuration. And this context is passed down to us from the Turbo environment so that we can make that separation nice and easy and clean. To be clear, this context property here, this context functionality or feature, I should say, is a Turbo specific thing. So this is something that Turbo provides as a convenience to developers. It's not something you should expect in any Node-Express project. So be that as it may, what we need to do is we need to tell our Turbo hosting environment, the staging context, that this change has taken place. So we need to update the context on the remote because right now we only did it on the local. The way you do that is you do Turbo page and then the name of the configuration file that we are updating without the extension. So you can just do Turbo page and then global. Because again, remember, on the remote hosting environment, the global configuration doesn't exist yet. It's not aware of it. So by doing this, we are creating it on the global, on the remote context. So now they're basically synced up. So what we can do now is we can do a deploy and make sure everything works on the staging environment the same as it does on local. So let's go ahead and make that adjustment, make that deploy, excuse me. And I'm going to pause the video while the deployment is going up. Okay, the deployment is now up. If it worked for you, you should see a similar output. And just like before, we can grab the staging URL and check it out on staging just to make sure everything looks accurate on staging. So here we are on staging. So here's the staging URL, and you'll see all the contents from the global configuration has been propagated on staging as well as same as on local. So that worked. That was successful. One good thing about this feature is that if we want to make a change to the global configuration, we can do that pretty easily without redeploying. So for example, let's say we want to remove this email, for example, just as an example. Please contact us. So if we head over to global, we can say if you have a specific, please feel free to contact us, and that's it. Let's say we want to do that because maybe we don't have an email yet, right? So what we can do is just make the change on the global configuration and just update the global by running the same page command, so turbo page global. Basically, again, what we're doing is we're syncing our remote environment with our local configuration, and this will just basically sync it up. So the context on the remote is now the same as it is over here. And then if I reload the remote, it says the configuration has changed. And again, keep in mind we're on the remote, the staging environment now. So it's no longer localhost. So that's a pretty convenient feature of these configuration files in the context of Turbo. Makes life a lot easier if you want to make small changes and tweaks and things like that. So hopefully you got that working. So let's move on now. I'm going to go back to local. So npm run serve. Okay, I was just checking to make sure I didn't forget to restart the video. Sometimes I do that. Let's head over to localhost. Okay, let's continue the configuration now. So let's update these big background images. And so I have some images prepared for that as well from the downloads. It's in the BG images directory right here. So I prepared a few images beforehand for this purpose, basically just showing t-shirts, I guess. Nothing special about these images. I just downloaded these off of Unsplash, which is a good source of unlicensed images or license-free images. And that's basically it, or you could even just do a Google search. My point is there's nothing unique about these images. I just downloaded these and grabbed these for this tutorial so I can show you how to make these updates. So let's go ahead and do that right now. We can continue using these page configuration files. So let's do that. I'm going to create a new page configuration file called home.json, and we're going to use this to create the key value pairs related to everything on the home page and just the home page. So that's why we're not doing this in the global, because global JSON is for content that applies to literally every page. But here, I just want to create some contents just for the home page. So I'm going to create an array. Let's see here. Let's think this through. So let's open up the home mustache. Now, if we go to the top, we have a hero section, and we have the images, BG, BG2, and that is what's showing up here. So this is called the hero section. So what we want to do is create a key in the home JSON called hero, and that's going to be a JSON object, and that's going to be, there's going to be, call these slides. So slides, and this is going to be an array of objects, and each array is going to have a background, and for now this is going to be it. So we're going to have, let's go with 3 slides, 1, 2, 3. And then in our image background, we're going to have BG images, and then there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's IMG, BG images, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's going to be, this should actually be a slash beforehand, IMG, BG images, and then 1, that's the first one. So that's this guy right here, this one. 2, 3, well, let's just do 1, 2, 3 for now. So we have, in our home configuration file, we have a hero section which has a slides array which has these properties, these 3 slides with the IMG background property. An important thing to understand here is that the name of the configuration file has to match the name of the template. These have to match, and if they match, what happens is the Turbo context will automatically provide the configuration file to the template. It'll just match them up. So there's actually no need to make any change here. This is already set to go. This is already done. So all we need to do now is head over to the home mustache and actually make the changes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to collapse these. So we have 2 slides that the theme provides for us automatically. I'm going to copy, hopefully you can see that clearly. I'm going to copy the first one, so that's this one right here, and paste it. No, better yet, I'm going to do this instead. I'm not going to copy it, I'm going to wrap it in a mustache partial placeholder, and we're going to do hashtag and then page hero and then slides. So a couple things going on here, and then I'm going to do another one at the end. So the Turbo context provides us the page configuration file as the page key as opposed to the global key. This is the configuration file that matches up with the template, so home JSON. The home JSON has a hero key, that's the hero section. And the hero key has a slides key, which is an array. Slides. That's this right here. Whenever we want to loop through an array of objects using the Mustache templating engine, we do so using this hashtag. And then we close it using this slash right here. And what that means is, for every item in the array, it will render this block of code each time. So in our case, we're going to have 3 renders, one for each one of these, 1, 2, 3. And each one of these objects in the array has an IMG background key, which is where we assigned the image for the background. So hopefully that wasn't too fast. If it was, just watch it again and it'll make sense. But let's go ahead and test it. So here, what we want to do is replace it with the placeholder of the background image key. And so it will now render this 3 times, one for each one of the elements of the slides, and it should show the corresponding image. So let's test that out. Head over to localhost, and now we have our first image, second image, third image, and then this is the one from the original theme, which I didn't remove. So let's go ahead and head back here to the home mustache, and let's get rid of the one left behind, and we are all set to go. I'm going to go back to the home JSON and add the fourth one, just to make sure everything's working. And let's try it out again. So first image, second, third, and fourth. Great. So now let's go back here to the home mustache and let's open up each part of the loop. Let's make a few small changes. You see where it says new arrivals? I'm just going to get rid of that. And then let's make sure that doesn't break anything. Looks good. And then let's go ahead and take these values and put them, these two. So we have denim jackets and then a description, and then let's move these over into the configuration file. So really, I should have made multiple lines out of each one of these. So these also have properties header and then text. So this will be the header, that's going to be the header, and that's going to be this is going to be the text. And then let's go ahead and make those changes. Don't forget this comma right here, comma. Okay, and then for now it's going to be the same every time, so let's just say new arrivals. And then let's grab the value here, the placeholder text here, and just paste it in here. So we're just copying and pasting values in, nothing complicated. Okay, and then go back to the actual home mustache template. Let's get rid of this, and we want to replace this with text, and then this is going to be, I believe we call the header. So here now we're really taking advantage of the mustache templating engine to clean up our HTML, right? So if we reload, it's going to be the same because we didn't change the text, but we just placed it into the configuration file. So let's say we want to change the first one to custom designs and then reload custom designs. And then, I don't know, artwork, beautiful artwork. Okay, and then maybe here we want stylish and trendy. Okay, great. So now that confirms that the content, this content, is coming from the home configuration JSON file, which is being passed in through this context. Notice we didn't make any changes here. It just happened automatically. So that's another feature of the Turbo context that makes life a lot easier from a coding standpoint, as far as configuring UIs and visual stuff like that. So let's go ahead and again make sure this works on staging. So just like with the global, we have to make sure that our staging environment context is updated, right? We made some changes here. We added a new configuration file, but we only did it on local, so it's not aware that the staging environment is not aware of this change. So we do the same thing. We do turbo, page, and then this time we do home instead of global. And basically we're updating the context on the remote staging environment with our home configuration file. And so now when we do our deploy, this data should now be up on the staging environment. And so the context should match up. Let's go ahead and confirm that. And I'm going to pause the video while this deployment goes up. Okay, the deployment is up. Let's go ahead and throw this into our browser and see if it looks the same. Great. So now we're seeing the contents from our home configuration JSON file with the updated text, and everything looks the same on staging as it does on local, and so everything is properly going through. I'm just going to check one thing real quick. See if we can make this 7. Maybe 8. I just want this to show up in one line. It's kind of annoying that it's showing up in 2 lines, so I'm seeing if I can. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. Excuse me, I was on the wrong slide. So let's try it again. Yeah, it's this one right here. Okay, so it's probably 7. These are bootstrap classes, and the numbers 6 and LG7 basically indicate how wide we want the columns to be. And basically we want more than 7 in this case. There we go. So I think that one fixed it. This isn't really relevant to the tutorial. I'm just doing a little bit of improvisation here. But these are the things I normally do when I'm dealing with implementing stuff for clients and stuff like that. Okay, you don't have to make that change if you don't want to. I'm just improvising. So maybe we want 7 here, and then 7 on both sides. Let's try a quick npm run serve, and let's try that on local. We actually wanted 8. There we go. Get everything all in one line. I just think that looks nicer. Okay, like I said, you don't have to worry about that. I was just improvising a little bit. but that's something I do very commonly for clients. Something else I would consider doing if you're doing the same thing is making this a little bit bigger. This subheader text here it's a bit too small for its purpose, so you know I would try and make that bigger on your end if I were you. If I was doing this for a client project, something like that. So okay, great. So that's it. That's how we updated the home page. This home page configuration file and the home mustache mustache rendering can be applied to all the pages. So if we had another page like a blog page, for example, or an about page or a contact us page, we could do the same thing. We can create another configuration file called blog.json or about.json, and the context will automatically provide the configuration to the render engine, which makes things a lot easier in the route file. So we don't have to put all that data in here or make this all messy with that data. And the key thing here, two key things, is that this creates a very nice separation of concerns. So these files are just JSON data, and that is it. Right, that's the important thing there. And then it makes it also easy to update it from our local environment without doing a deploy. We can just update the context, and it'll make that change. So let's say I want to do an exclamation mark here. Right here where it says stylish, I can just do that, and then turbo page home, and all I'm doing is updating the context rather than redeploying the entire site. So then I can go to the staging environment now, and the context should be updated as well. So it won't. I didn't deploy the change here, but now you see the exclamation mark after stylish. So that did quickly update, and makes that process a lot easier in terms of making small changes. So typically this is good for like if you find a typo. So if you made a typing error, it's a spelling error, it makes it very easy just to fix that up real quick. So great, hopefully you got all that working. In the next video we're going to keep moving down the page and update all this using our t-shirts. I have a couple t-shirts already prepared for this purpose. So we're going to populate this with our t-shirt imagery and start setting up the actual shop, integrating the actual payments. So hopefully you got everything working. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, welcome back to our Node.js and Express tutorial series here on Turbo 360. In the previous video, we continued setting up the home page configuration by filling out this content area over here. We added our images and used the configuration page JSON files to populate this data over here, as well as down here. So hopefully you got all that working. In this video, we're going to continue down the home page and fill out this section with t-shirts. This is going to be a t-shirt shop. That's why it's called the Shirt Shack. And then, so these are going to be t-shirts that are going to be coming from the content management system of Turbo. So instead of having more configuration files in the JSON pages section, we're going to set up the content management system, or the CMS, for Turbo, which enables us to create a database on the Turbo environment, which we can then input our own data, our own custom data, in this case t-shirts, or we're going to call it shirts, and then interface with that data both in the code and in the admin console of our project. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to run the local server, make sure everything still works fine locally. Okay, there we go. And then let's head over to localhost 3000 and just reload, make sure this looks okay. Great, everything here looks good. So let's go back and turn off the server. So again, we're going to use the Turbo Content Management System, which is a great feature on Turbo, which enables us to create a database on our projects and easily add and store data. And the CMS follows a very, very similar schema as or architectural design as a MongoDB. So basically, by learning the CMS system here, you're also learning Mongo and the Mongoose ORM at the same time. So it's kind of like learning, it's kind of like Mongo on training wheels. You can think of it that way. So the first thing we need to do is actually integrate the CMS into our project. So we're extending our project with the Turbo content management system. So the way you do that is Turbo, and we extend the project, and we're extending it with the CMS. Now before I run this command, I want you to pay attention to this area over here, this left side over here. It's going to add a couple directories and files. So go ahead and run that, and you'll see over here, you'll see models, controllers, and TMP show up. So for now, what matters the most is the models and then the controllers. So we're basically interfacing with the database. And so around that concept, we have to use models to design the schema of our data types. So if you actually open up the models directory, I'm going to just close all this stuff. Okay, if you open up the models directory, you will see a post.js file, which if you open that up, you're going to see a schema with a handful of attributes that relate to a blog post. So basically, the CMS gives you one model schema just right out of the box, and that's for a blog post. So if you think about a blog post, you'll see that these attributes correspond to a conventional blog. You have an image, a title, the text, author, things like that. And this gives you a good sense of how the schemas are designed in the database, and this is pretty much how it works in the Mongoose ORM as well. This is about a 90% approximation. So this is our post model or slash schema. And then if you open up the controllers, you'll see we have two files, but the most important one is post controller. And this file right here is what handles the CRUD operations, the create, read, update, and delete operations against the post model. So this is really what actually performs the operations on the post. So if we want to fetch a bunch of posts or we want to find posts, we run the get command on the controller. If we want to get a specific post by unique identifier, then we run the get by ID, which essentially proxies this find by ID on the post model itself. If we want to run this command post, which is not the same as the post model name, this basically means create. We end up creating a blog post, and then put means update. So if we want to create a change and update to an existing post, we run the put, which proxies this right here, find by ID and update, and then delete. So these commands are basically the basic CRUD operations of most database CMS style architectures and integrations, and we use a controller in this case to run those changes, those database interactions. There's no reason why you couldn't add more to this. In fact, that's pretty typical. But at the very least, these should be implemented. These first 5 should be implemented more or less as is. If you want to create different kinds of queries, like maybe you want to create another one for like get featured blog posts, that should be fine. But you want to maintain what's already in place. Now, of course, we're not running a blog here. We're running a t-shirt store. So we need to create another model and another controller. These are often referred to as resources, by the way. Models and resources sometimes are used interchangeably. And we want to create another resource called shirt with a corresponding controller, which handles the CRUD operations for shirt. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So the way you do that using the Turbo CLI is you do Turbo, and we're creating a resource. So resource, and then the name of the resource, so shirt. And this command will create the model and the controller for you right out of the box. So we have our shirt model and our shirt controller. If you open up the model, you'll see that there is a very, very stripped down schema, only 2 attributes that come right out of the box. So basically it doesn't give us anything other than 2 sort of default attributes. And then the controller is the same thing. It has all the CRUD operations already set up. So we're going to do a little bit of work in both areas. So the shirt in here in this props object is where we declare the attributes that define a t-shirt in our system. So if we actually head over back to the UI and take a look at one of these, we're going to have a name, a price, and an image. At a bare minimum, we're going to have that. So those are going to be definite attributes. So let's go with an image. This is going to be a string. The default value is going to be empty string, and we don't want that to be immutable. Immutable means it cannot be changed after creation, so we don't want that. We're going to need a name, of course, and a price. Now, price, of course, is not a string. It should be a number, which means we should set the default value to 0. If we go to the when the user clicks on one of these, it's going to go to a description page for that shirt. So the shirt should at the very least have another attribute called description. Description. That's going to be a string defaulted to empty string. And we're going to also have an array of sub images, so secondary images. So when a visitor clicks on one of these shirts, it's going to go to like a detail page with more images for that particular item. So we want to add that as well. So that's going to be an array of images. And we want to call this an array, of course, which means the default value should be an empty array. Last but not least, we're going to add a slug. And this is sort of a unique identifier. A unique identifier that's separate from the actual ID. So when you insert a new item into the database, it'll give you a unique ID number. But we generally don't want to expose that. We want to minimize exposure to that. So we create a slug, which is kind of a random string that gets created, generated for us. Well, actually, we have to write the code for that. So that's going to happen in the controller. So the controller, if you recall, handles all the CRUD operations. So what we want to do is on the create, which is the post command right here. This is the creation command. We want to generate the slug string, and then we want to apply that to the new shirt. So luckily it's already happening in the post controller. If you head over to post and find the same thing, you'll see over here the slug value is already being attached to the object. So what we want to do is we can just copy this over, and it's right inside this promise return. So we can just do this, and we don't want to reference the title here because the shirt does not have a title property. So keep that in mind. That'll actually crash. We want to use the name instead. So if there's a name, we want to generate a slug version out of it. And this will create a unique string identifier, which we call the slug. And then that will be stored in the database as a unique identifier on the shirt, which does not match the actual database identifier. So in general, you don't want to expose that. That's a shaky practice. Okay, so our shirt model is now organized. I think this will be all we need for this project. We have our controller. We made one minor change on the creation handler. One more thing we need to do is in the controller's index, we need to actually register the new controller. So we simply import it. That's going to be shirt controller. Don't forget over here. And then we have to export it like that using this key value pair. It should be named after the resource itself. So in this case, shirt. And this is how you register a new controller with the CMS. So without this, it won't know, the environment won't know about it. It won't pick it up. Okay. So that takes care of that on the model and the controller side. The last thing we need to do now is head over to the app.js and tell the config that we are now using the CMS. And that's done in line 21. We just have to uncomment this. And this line right here is what establishes the database connection to the CMS. So without this line right here, the CMS wouldn't be connected at all. There would be no database connection. So this establishes the database connection, and so now what that means is we can run it locally and basically make sure nothing crashes. And you'll see here there's a success command callback saying the DB is successfully connected. So if we head over to localhost 3000, everything still works. However, we didn't see any visual differences. Everything looks the same. That's because we don't have any shirts currently in the content management system. So then that begs the question, how do we do that? How do we add shirts? How do we create some shirts in the CMS? So let's go ahead and do that. But before we do, let's throw this up on the staging server to make sure that everything works on staging as well as it does on localhost, so that we know that everything is good on both sides. So I'm going to run the deploy and pause the video while that's going up. Okay, the deployment is now up. Let's take a look at the staging server and make sure everything still works on staging. Okay, looks good. So basically everything looks the same, but now we have the CMS integrated into this project. So then how do we use it? How do we actually use the content management system? Well, if you head over to your Turbo account and click on your account section, and then My Sites over here, click on Sites, you should see your project near the top. So click on Manage, and then this is the admin dashboard for your project. Back when in video one, when we created the project, this is the same page we were on. On the left-hand side, you will see a configuration option. And don't worry about this UI. I'll show you how to make this cleaned up in a later video. But most importantly, look at the left side. We have a new option called CMS. That's because the project, the environment, is aware of the CMS that we integrated into the project. And so if you click on CMS, you'll be taken to the content management system sort of dashboard where you can manage your CMS. So if you look at the upper right corner and click on this drop down over here, you'll see we have two options, one for post and one for shirt. And shirt is the resource we created just now and deployed. So the CMS is picking up that we added a shirt resource, and we can use this to add a actual shirt. And if you click on this right here, add shirt, you'll see that we have fill-in fields for all the attributes that we had defined in the schema. So this is ours coming from our schema, the image, name, slug, price, description, and images that we defined in our code in the shirt model. And if you see, these are the ones that show up. The reason why we don't see these two is because of this immutable flag. So the immutable means it's hidden from the dashboard. So we should see these 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 show up over here. And here is where we can actually start creating t-shirts. So if you go back to the code, the folder of the project, and open up the t-shirt store project, and then the public directory, and then the IMG folder, you'll see there's another folder here called t-shirts. And basically this is a series of t-shirt images that I prepared beforehand for this video. So we actually don't want this inside the project. So if we go back one level and put this on the desktop, we actually want it on the desktop. They shouldn't even be in the project at all, because we want to create the shirts over here in the CMS. So what we're going to do is, so I put the shirts folder on my desktop, and what we're going to do is create our first t-shirt using this CMS. So let's go ahead and click on change for image and click on the t-shirts folder, and let's go ahead and use the first t-shirt, shirt 1, and that's this one right here. Okay, and let's just call that Darth Vader. Leave the slug empty, and then the description, this is my Darth Vader design. and leave the images array empty as well for now. We'll update these later. Let's go ahead and create the shirt. Shirt created. And what you'll notice is that if we click out of here, an entry in the table has been created. And here's when it was created. And this is the unique identifier of the entity in the CMS. So if we click on this, it'll show the entry that we just created. And if I reload and go back to the CMS and then click on shirt, it'll show up again. It'll still be there. So this is how you interact with the CMS. Now I want to make a few minor changes here because I forgot a few things. So you'll notice over here on the actual table, only the ID of the shirt shows up, and it's this weird, unique string that's hard to really understand what you're looking at. It's not really a good user experience. And also you may notice the slug has been automatically generated for us because that's how we defined it in the shirt controller in the post right here. So this is automatically created for us. The main thing here is that we don't want the slug to be changeable or really even visible. We just want this to be sort of a hidden field, and we can do that by going back to our schema and telling the CMS that the slug attribute right here is also immutable. So it won't even show up here. That's what we want. However, we do want the name to show up in this table, so it's easier to navigate this table. So the way you do that is you head back here and you say in the name attribute, not the image, excuse me, the name attribute right here, we tell it to display. And this display flag means we want this attribute in particular to show up in the table. And that's what those flags mean. So let's go ahead and redeploy and make sure and confirm that those changes update the CMS properly. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy again. Pause the video. Okay, the deployment is up. So again, these are pure CMS changes, right? So if I go to the staging URL, it's not going to make any difference. It's going to look the same. But if I go back to the CMS now and I reload, so we should reload the CMS and then click on CMS, head back to the shirt resource. Now we see the name showing up right here, and now we know what shirt we're clicking on right there. So we can click on that, and then it will show the name over here, the unique identifier, and the slug value has disappeared because we don't actually want to change that. We want to keep that hidden as well as unique. So here is where the CMS is connected. Let's say we want to change the price. We can just change this to another value and then apply changes, and then it updates, and the CMS is now set to go. Let's add another shirt. So let's say add shirt and shirt 2. And let's say we'll call this love. We'll say this is $10. This is my love design. And we'll leave these images array empty for now. And then go ahead and create the shirt. So now we have the second one, and the first one is over here. I'm going to add one more. Dancing. This is my dancing shirt design. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and add that. So now we have 3 shirts in the CMS, and they're good to go. And so that's how you add shirts and basically set up the CMS. Now the key question here is, how do we use this on local? All right, so if we run the local server, we don't have that data on the CMS locally. And here's how you know. So if you recall, when we did Turbo extend CMS, it created 3 directories, models, controllers, and TMP. And the TMP folder is where the local data, CMS data, is stored, one for each resource in the controller. So if we actually look at shirts or posts, really, you'll just see empty files because there is no local data, so it's not synced up. So to sync up the CMS, we have to clear this data out first, and then we need to fetch the data from the CMS. So let's set up that process. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to head back to the routes folder and open up the main.js. And we want to fetch the t-shirts from the CMS for the home page, because if you think about the home page, I'm just going to use localhost for this. These shirts should be coming from the CMS. So what we need to do is query the CMS or the database for the t-shirts currently in the backend. So the way we do that is in the main route, we import the controllers, because remember, the controllers are what handles all the CRUD operations, and we're about to do a read, which is the R in the CRUD. So we're about to do a read, sometimes called a fetch. The controllers right here is this index file right here, which exports, in our case, 2 keys, shirt and post, which is 1 each for each resource. So we want to grab the shirt controller. So the way we do that is we grab the shirt controller, by grabbing the controller's shirt key, like that. If you look at the controller itself, you may notice that this is a class. So it's not just a raw object, it's a class, which means we need to create an instance of this. So we want to do instance, like that. And now we have an instance of this controller, which we can then use to run the queries. So here we're going to do a get. So we can just run this get command. So we do shirt controller and then get. And this will get every shirt in our current CMS backend. A couple things here. This is returning a promise. So this is an asynchronous method, asynchronous function. So we want to tell the callback handler that this is an async function. And then we want to do an async await here, like that. And this represents every shirt in our current CMS backend. An easier way to see this actually is if I do router, I'm going to do another get handler, one just for shirts, because right now it's hard to see what's going on, and I'm just going to do this again for shirts, like that. And then instead of returning a page, I'm just going to return some raw JSON, and then it's going to return shirts, like that. So this is another handler path for shirts, which is going to do exactly what we did up here. We fetched all the shirts, and then we're going to return it just as raw JSON. So I can test that right now on localhost by going back to localhost 3000, and this time I can do shirts. And it's going to give me an empty array because we have no shirts in our CMS, right? So that's what I was pointing out a few moments ago. But we do have shirts in the actual backend, the actual hosting environment. So right now the key is we got to sync these two up. We got to get these shirts in our local project. So the way we do that is we need to clear this stuff out. So you can literally just manually clear out these files. But an easier way is to run this reset command, npm run reset, which will do the same thing. So if I do npm run reset, it will clear out these 2 temp files, which it just did. And so now when we run the query locally, when we run this query locally, the local environment will see that there is no DB backing file here, no collection file. So it will fetch it from the remote and sync up with the remote, and that's how you do that. So we can run the serve right now, and then go back here, and now we have our 3 t-shirts from the CMS that we created over here, and they line up. So these are the same 3 t-shirts we created on the remote CMS, our remote hosting environment. So this time, unlike before, we're actually syncing up our local with the remote instead of the other way, which we were doing with our page configuration files. So we now have data in our local environment. See right here we have our shirts. And so now we can use this query to populate the shirts on our home page. So I already set up the query here. It's really the same exact thing. We could bind that to the data right away, just like that. So now the data key here the data object here has a new key called shirts, which is an array of t-shirts. It's literally this array right here. And so we can loop through the shirts array in the home template and then render each t-shirt instead. So let's set that up. So we go back here and we go to the home template and we have latest products, which is this area right here. So let's populate this area with our t-shirts. So we have latest products, and it looks like the product item class represents one individual item. So the theme gave us these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the box. Let's get rid of these 4. Let's get rid of these and leave 1 behind. Just rendered it 4 times. Okay, and then let's go through the array of shirts just like before. So we're just looping through the array of shirts, and then each shirt has a name. So right here is right there. That's where the name should go. And then it also has a price. And for now, let's just make sure that this is working. So here are the names, and they do match up, right? So now let's go ahead and show the image, and that is going to be the image key right here. So let's go ahead and render that over here instead. You may wonder why I'm using 3 curly braces instead of 2 this time. Generally speaking, when you have a URL, a full URL as your string, you want to render that with 3 curly braces. It'll actually work fine with 2, but this is a little bit more stable. It's just better practice to do it this way. So let's go ahead and make sure that that works. And now we have our 1, 2, 3, and it just loops back to the first one. So now we have our shirts showing up with our prices and whatnot. So so yeah, so that's it. So I am going to make a few more tweaks here. This heart and this heart icon I'm going to get rid of. And instead of add to cart, let's say view details. Let's go with that. There we go. And this is a link right now that goes nowhere. Let's get this text down here uppercase. So the name, so we'll say class text capitalize. That's a bootstrap class, which will just uppercase the string, not uppercase, just the first letters of each word. So I think that just looks a little bit more professional. Okay, and that's it. So now let's go ahead and throw this guy up on the staging environment to make sure that this is working properly on staging as it does on local. So let's go ahead and send that up. So I'm going to turn off the server and do a turbo deploy. And as always, I'm going to pause this while it's going up. Okay, the deployment is up. So now this time when we go to staging, we should see something different. we should see the actual t-shirts from our CMS. And there we are. So let's go back to the CMS on Turbo itself. And here we have our 3 shirts from before. I'm going to add one more. Call this one Love 2. And this will be $10. This is my second Love t-shirt design. And we'll just go with that for now. Okay, and so now we have a 4th one. So now this is automatically updating the CMS. So if I go back here, now you'll see all 4 of them show up. You see Love 2, Darth Vader, Dancing, Love, and it rotates back. So the CMS automatically updates. If we want to make a change, let's say we change our mind on the price of Dancing and we want to make that $20. We can apply the changes, and now Dancing, as the t-shirt design, here it is. It's $10 here, but when I reload, because now the data has been updated, it is now $20. And that's how the CMS works. So, and then if I hover over this, view details, so forth and so on. And this is how you interface with the CMS. And yeah, that's it. So you can extend this to as many data objects as you want. We will be adding another one soon. When a visitor creates an order, that'll add another object to our CMS data type called order, where we can look up the details of a user order. So, so yeah, hopefully you got all that working. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, welcome back to Turbo 360. In the previous video, we set up the content management system for storing our t-shirts in the database, which are showing up right here, and we added a few t-shirts so that we can be sure that our shop, our t-shirt shop, actually has stuff to sell. So hopefully you got all that working. In this video, we're going to set up the individual pages for each one of these shirts, such that a user can click on this right here, and really I'm going to make the whole image clickable, and then navigate to an individual shirt page where the user can then eventually purchase that t-shirt. So, so that's it. Let's go ahead and get started. Here I am at the end of the last video. I'm going to run the local server and make sure that that still works. So npm run serve. Let's head over to localhost now. And here we are on localhost, and everything looks good. And this data from here on local is synced up with our remote. So everything is lined up on the local as well as the remote. So, so good. Let's keep moving along. So each one of these t-shirts should have its own dedicated page, again, where the viewer can see more details about the t-shirt, as well as eventually purchase it if he likes it or she likes it. So we're going to go back to the original theme to grab one of the pages from the theme to use as that individual t-shirt page. So if you open up the theme from way back from video 1, the page we're going to use is this product page right here. So let's open that up in Visual Studio. And let's highlight the entire thing and copy it. And then in the views directory over here, we want to create a new file called shirt. This is going to be a mustache template. And then we're going to paste the HTML from the product HTML into the shirt HTML. Shirt mustache file, excuse me. Now, way back in video 1, we carved up the HTML into a series of partials which are designed to replace these sort of repeat sections of code. Let's go ahead and use those partials here. So inside the head tag, we're going to have the head partial. So it's going to look like that. And then inside the body tag, we actually got rid of the preloader, and we're going to have the, I believe we call this the head, no, sorry, the nav partial. If we open up the home mustache, we can just take a look at what we have. So we have the nav partial. So like that. And then if we scroll to the bottom, we have these scripts. The footer and the scripts. And I believe that's it. The partials has 4. Right, that's correct. So let's get rid of the scripts and the footer and use the partials instead, and leaving behind only the contents we want for the individual shirt page. So that should be all set to go. Let's go back to the main route, and let's go ahead and create another get handler for the individual shirt page. Now here is where we're going to use the slug property of the shirt to render a specific shirt. So you may remember when we were setting up the schema for the shirt. So let me close all these files because this can get a little bit confusing. When we were setting up the schema for the individual shirt right here, we included a slug attribute which was not displayed on the CMS table. So you may have been wondering why we would be doing that. So we're going to use this slug as a unique identifier for each shirt rather than the actual database identifier. The database identifier is the one that's automatically assigned by the database, like this one right here. But in general, we don't want to expose that. It's usually a bad practice. So that's why we have a slug value here, like this one over here. And we can use that to uniquely identify the individual shirt. So here we're adding a request parameter to the URL, the path, named slug, of course. And we can then grab the slug from the params and then use that to query for the specific shirt that we have in mind. So we have to get the shirt controller, and then we have to get the shirt controller, and then here we can make a query, but this time we can pass in a query filter, and it's going to be for slug, like that. So we want a shirt, well, all the shirts that match this particular slug value. It's going to return an array because theoretically it can be multiple shirts. This is another async await. And then for now, I'm just going to have it return some JSON shirts like that. And for now, we're just going to see whether or not this endpoint works at all. So let's head over to our terminal and run the localhost. It's already running, so we can go ahead and just check it right away. So if we go to localhost 3000/shirt, and then just type in a random slug value, we'll get an empty array because we have no shirts in our database that match this slug value. So this is the expected output. If we go to our temp directory and open up the shirts DB, we'll have our 3 shirts in the DB. We can just pick any of these really, and then highlight the slug value. Make sure you copy the slug value like that, and then you can pass it in like here. And here we're getting the specific shirt that matches this slug value by using the query. So hopefully that makes sense. Now bear in mind this is an array, so we actually want the first item of the array. So what we want to do is grab the shirt, and we want to return that instead, like so. And then now we have the specific shirt in mind. So if we check another one, let's say we just pick another shirt. Here's the slug value of the second one. And that's returning the correct one. So you can see that more closely like that. So this is working. So now we have the correct data. I'm going to do a little bit of error handling. If shirts length is 0, then we want to return an error JSON. We'll just say confirmation fail, and then we'll include a message saying shirt not found, just in case somebody enters in the wrong, like a typo in the URL or something like that. So if I go back to my first example, 1, 2, 3, it'll say shirt not found, and that's just a better way to handle that. At least there's some sort of message. So now what we want to do here is, instead of render the JSON, we want to render the actual shirt template that we set up earlier in the video right here. So we want to return the shirt template, and then I am going to grab the data, the context, the request context, and pass it in like this, like that. And then we just pass in the data instead, rather than just the shirt. So the reason we're doing this is because then we have all the rest of the context as well. So we have the global object, the page configuration if we decide to add one. It gives us the entire context of the environment rather than just the shirt data. And then we're passing in the data, the shirt, as underneath the key shirt. So hopefully that makes sense. And then if I reload this now, okay, if I reload this now, let's see here. Let's pick a slug value that we know exists. So here's one. So now we have the template, but it's not showing up properly with the CSS. Let's see what's going on here. So, okay. So what's going on here is we want to use what's called a relative file path. So you see these slashes, these CSS hrefs. There should be a slash before each one of these. So if I go back to the views, partials, and then the head tag, these should actually be that instead. It's kind of hard to explain why, but this is why the imports aren't properly going through. So we can just do a quick find and replace. So I'm just going to replace them all in one quick step. So make sure you catch that. We want to do a replace all like that. And then we actually want to do the same thing for the JavaScript imports as well. So if we go down to the scripts, it's going to be the same error. So we want to do a find and replace all, and then make sure you see these slashes in front of it. These are called relative file paths. It's a little confusing as to why that didn't import properly, but that's the problem, rest assured. So now here the styling is at least restored. The reason why we don't see any imagery is because if you look at the shirt mustache template, these image file paths are the same thing. We should replace all of these with a slash in front of it like that. So we can do a replace all here as well, and then that should properly import the images. And this is what the actual template should look like. Now bear in mind, the nav bar and the footer are already populated with our contents because we're using the partials and the global configuration. So we didn't have to do anything here. It was already set up for us. But here is the template content for what we're gonna render our shirt as. So this is how it's gonna look. Hopefully that backslash issue didn't cause too many problems on your end, but that's what it was. And this is from the template. These double slashes, and they have 6 of these. We should get rid of these as well. So we're going to do 1 backslash like that, Okay. So if we try it again, it was these down here. Okay, great. Okay, so this is what the whole thing should look like. So now we're back in business. I'm just going to double check the home page, make sure nothing broke over on that side, and everything here still looks good. Great. So let's go back here and let's start setting up this page for our specific shirt. So I'm going to get rid of this gray section right here. I don't think it's really adding to the UI at all. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. That's this right here. So category page, you see that? And then let's reload. And now we have the shirt section. We have a little description right here, and some icon imagery, some imagery, the price, the name, etc. So let's set up this UI. So let's get rid of this back to category thing right here. It's not necessary. Okay, let's populate the name. Now keep in mind, if you go back to the main route, we already fetched the shirt and attached it to the data underneath the key shirt. So the data has already been fetched. So let's go ahead and populate the template. So right now it says white peplum top, and that's going to be actually the name of our shirt. So that's right here. We want to do shirt and then dot name. We also have a price, shirt price. Here we go. We don't need these stars and the reviews and all that stuff. Let's get rid of that. Okay. We're only going to offer small, medium, and large. So let's get rid of these last three. So 38, 40, and 42. That's going to go. Okay, I want to change these to small, medium, and large. So 32, 34, I'm going to say small, medium, large. Okay. And let's see here. Okay, that works. And then quantity, we're not going to have a quantity choice. We're just going to always have it say 1. Okay. And then instead of shop now, it's going to say purchase. Purchase. And this will launch the actual checkout flow. And then down here where it says information and it has care details and shipping returns, we're just going to do information and that's it. So we have over here, let's see, the information accordion panel is right here. So that's those two. And then here's another panel. We can just get rid of that. And then here's another one. We can just get rid of that. And that should leave behind only the information. Okay, and then we want to change that to description. And then we're going to use the description from the actual shirt. So let's get rid of all this and let's use the description like that. And then let's see what we get. Let's see here. So we have another endpoint which returns all the shirts in raw JSON, and then we have, okay, so these are the 3 shirts, and right now this is the one we're rendering, we're testing, and this is the description. So what I forgot was the shirt key like that. Okay, let's try it again. Here we go. All right, so this looks good. Let's see here. I think what I want to do is take this section and flip it with this one. So I want to put the price or the purchase. Yeah, let's see how that looks. So I'm going to take this panel, which is the description panel. I'm going to just cut the whole thing and put it above, right below the name. And let's see how that looks. I'm going to put it right below the price instead. Let's try that. Let's see here. Let's try one more thing. I'm going to put it right below here, the available span header. Okay, that looks better. Let's create some space here. So that's going to be, let's see, what are we going to use for that? Let's create an MT4. That's a bootstrap class. That gives us some room. I think we're going to do 5 on this one. That's MT stands for margin top. Okay, let's go with that for now. I think this will be the UI we go with. Okay, so let's test one of the other shirts. So let's go with the Darth Vader one here. Okay, that worked. And then let's go with the last one. Okay, great. So now let's actually get these images showing up. So there is an image. Every shirt has an image property, which is the image of the shirt. So if we keep scrolling down here. Oops, wrong direction. Let's go up. And the image is right here. Now remember, a URL should be rendered in 3 curly braces, not 2. So let's try that. And so here is the shirt, our shirt, and we'll handle this situation in a few minutes. And then let's take care of these thumbnails. So if we go to the bottom, we want to do the same thing. Shirt image. Let's see here. Oh, there's actually 2. There's a data BG image URL, and then there's an actual image tag inside this div. That was a little sneaky, so let's grab that one too. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay, great. So this now matches up. Let's try one thing real quick here. Let me see if this works. Okay, that's a little bit better. So here's what I did with this image manipulation. So if we take this image URL from the shirt that we're currently looking at, we get this image right here, which is the original size of the image that we uploaded. Now, one of the key benefits of this image platform that we're using here is that we can skew this up and down by appending a parameter. If I do towards the end equals S100, it'll give me a much smaller version. This number right here indicates the maximum dimension that the image will return. In this case, I went the other way. I did 2048, and I got a much larger image, and that's the image I'm using here to populate this section over here. So that gives us a lot of flexibility to render different sizes of images rather than uploading different sizes of images. So that's really helpful in terms of creating a lot of flexibility in terms of how we want to render our images. If I want to render a smaller one here, it gives me that. I'm going to go a little bit bigger actually. And if I want to render a perfect square, if I want to crop this into a perfect square, all I have to do is -C, and this will give me a square version, which is great for rendering thumbnails and things like that. So so that's what that's why I added this this right here, because for the main portrait image, I want to show the biggest version of the shirt. A very high-res version, as high-res a version as this can support. So that takes care of that. Now let's take care of these 3 thumbnail images. So if you recall, in the shirt model or schema, we have an images array which is empty, and that we didn't populate in the CMS. So we now want to populate this array with a couple more images of the shirt. Now, we're not going to do that for all 3 shirts because that would be a lot of uploading for separate images. What I did was I prepared 3 images for this video, specifically for this part of the tutorial, but they're 3 images of random shirts. So it's this zip file right here. As usual, you can download it in the description of the video section, and you'll have the same images that I have. And it's going to be these 3, and these are just basically just 3 random images of people wearing fancy clothes. But theoretically, they're supposed to be the same shirt that shows up here. But for now, they're not going to be that. So let's go ahead and upload these 3 images. Where'd they go? These 3 images, so that we can show them over here for each shirt. So right now we're using the Love 2 shirt. No, just regular Love. So let's go ahead and find that in our CMS. So we head over to our sites, and then the t-shirt store, and then click on configuration. And this is where we manage our CMS and other stuff, which we'll get to in a later video. But if we go to the CMS and then click on shirt, we have the 4 from last time. We're going to update this one right here. And let's go ahead and populate the images. Now basically what we need to do here is fill out 3 more images, image URLs, inside this array. So we can't upload right from here because it doesn't give us an upload option. So what we can do is click on Files over here. If we click on Files, we can just upload files directly to our environment. Let's go ahead and do that. So upload a file, and then we want to find the shirt images, and we're going to do all 3 of these, so just one at a time. Now let's go ahead and click each one of these open in a separate tab. So here we have 1, 2, 3, and we can do all that skewing and cropping and all that stuff by doing S2048 for a bigger version, or S120 for a smaller version. So this image hosting platform is really convenient, and it makes life a lot easier for rendering images rather than uploading multiple versions of all of these. So now we can go back to our CMS and we can update this array. It's a little confusing, but we have to basically create the array over here and then just copy and paste it in. So if I take this string, highlight and copy this entire string, we want to put it in quotation marks, don't forget this comma, and then paste it in. And then we do it again for the next one. Don't forget this comma, and then we do it again for the next one. And then we just highlight and copy the whole thing, and then we can just paste it in right here, like that. And that should be good to go. So this is going to be our array of images. So now we can just save this, and that should be all set. And then if we go to our shirt, website on staging, you may recall we have that endpoint which just returns the JSON. And here is the one where we have the 3 images in the images array. So we now need to sync our local environment with this data over here. So what we want to do is we want to turn off the local server, and I'm going to clear out the local database because this is now out of date. So I'm going to clear it out by doing npm run reset, which just clears the local database. and then I can do npm run serve, and then I can resync it up by heading over to localhost 3000, and then the shirts endpoint, and it now has synced up on localhost from the remote because it has to refresh the database. So our data is now lined up on the staging server. So this is the test shirt we've been using the whole time. So this one right here. So here's the slug. So if I go to the actual localhost page right here, so it's the same page, now we have an array for these three items right here. So let's go ahead and populate that in the template. So in the shirt template, that's these three right here, right? So what we can do is we can get rid of the latter two, and then in this one right here, we can just do another loop through the images array. So we can just go ahead and do that. And this is where we are now looping through an array of strings. So what we can do here, in order to render just the raw string value, this is a little confusing. If I take a look at the actual array, which is right here, these are not JSON objects, right? These are just strings, raw strings. So in order to just insert the value of the string from the loop, we can just do a period like that. And that will just render the actual value of the string itself. And then here, we can just do that. So this is the main image right here, sort of the icon image. I'm sorry, this is the thumbnail image. So the main image ends up over here. The thumbnail image, we don't really want it rendering the whole thing. It's probably not a big deal though. Let's just see how it looks. Okay, so here are the three that we uploaded, and if we click on that, here is where we have the image showing up in the featured area. Let's see if we can make this any bigger. Let's see what's going on here. I think what's going on is we want this one to be the featured size. Excuse me, we want this one, the value in the loop, to be the featured size. Well, let's see if we can get a slightly bigger version going here. Or maybe we want it on this one. There we go. So we want this one to be the big image. So maybe I should have done the same thing over here. Let's try this guy over here. And then, well, it actually ended up not mattering on the first one, but the second one is what we're going for. So you see how this is nice and big and very detailed and very immersive. I click on this, same thing, and this is really what the idea behind this featured section for the shirt. So again, these are just three random images I found on Unsplash. They really should be of the same shirt, or at least different people wearing this shirt right here, but I couldn't really find that, so this was the next best option. So this is good to go. And yeah, so this now is filled out with the details for this particular shirt, theoretically at least. And let's try another one. So if we head back here and just grab another slug value. Now keep in mind, these do not have images, supporting images. So we're not going to see all of them. We're only going to see the one main image. And that's what's going on in this case. So make sure you understand why certain things are happening. But if you do upload supporting images for the other shirts, they will show up over here. And that's how you do that from the CMS, the Turbo CMS over here. And yeah, we could actually just copy and paste these. So let's go ahead and copy that and paste it for the Darth Vader one. Okay, I'm going to reset the local one more time. And then we're going to run it locally. Head over here. And now we have our images on the Darth Vader one. So if we hit that specific page, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Looks great. So let's go ahead and finish this up by doing a deploy and making sure this works on the staging environment as well as usual. So I'm going to send that up. Okay, the deployment is now up. Let's head over to the staging environment. And here's what we have so far. And then if we test this endpoint, we should see the same thing, which we do. And again, we're on staging now, so this is not the local host anymore. And if I try the first one, and there we are. So everything looks good on staging as it does on local. That's great. And so this now sets up the individual shirt page, so we can change the description, the price, and all that stuff will change over here on the individual page for each shirt. So that's great. In the next video, we're going to begin setting up the process of submitting an actual order. So when the user clicks this purchase button, it will trigger the checkout flow, which we will be using PayPal for. So make sure you have a PayPal account. You will need it to get this to work, and it has to be a business account. The business accounts are free, but make sure you have that. And then we will walk through how to do an actual checkout process using the PayPal SDK and submitting an order. So that's it. Hopefully you got all this working, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, welcome back to our t-shirt tutorial series here on Turbo 360. In the previous video, we set up the individual page for each t-shirt so that if a visitor wants to see more details about a specific shirt, additional screenshots and the price, and maybe buy it, they can do that on that individual page. In this video, we're going to actually connect the checkout flow on using PayPal so that people can actually buy shirts on your website if you want to support that functionality. You will need a PayPal account, so make sure you have that, and it does need to be a business account. Business accounts are free, but they just have more additional functionality for things like what we're about to set up in this video. So make sure you have that if you want to follow along and connect the actual payments flow in your t-shirt store in your project. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to run the local host and make sure everything still works the way it does at the end of the last video. So let's head over to localhost 3000. Everything here looks good. All the t-shirts are showing up from the CMS. Let's take a look at the individual shirt page. And this is what we set up in the last video. Great, so everything is still good to go. In this video, we're gonna remove this and replace it with the PayPal button and actually connect the PayPal flow. I'm going to do a little bit of reorganizing here just to make it a little bit easier a little bit less cluttered, and we will then set up the actual PayPal button here to check out. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn off the server, open up the shirt mustache template. I'm going to scroll down to the purchase button, this button right here. Let's go ahead and remove that. So that's this right here. I'm going to replace this with a div whose ID is PayPal button, and this is where the PayPal button is actually going to show up. So we're going to need this later. Here are the social media sharing icons. I'm going to remove this and place it up top near the title and the price. So the name and the price, I'm going to get rid of this and replace it with the social media sharing icons. And let's see how that looks. Okay, let's bring this up a little bit. That's probably a padding on that div. So we're going to want to do a padding top of 0. This is a bootstrap class, which gives us the ability to change the padding. That margin, let's make that over here on the price a margin bottom of 0 to group these two a little bit closer. I think maybe 1 is a better move here. Okay, so that's all set to go, and now let's set up the PayPal button down here, and that's going to be inside this div that we initially set up over here. But before we do that, like I said before, we're going to need an account on PayPal. So head over to developer.paypal.com. I'm already logged in, but if you don't have an account, go ahead and sign up, and then head over to your dashboard on your PayPal account. Click on that. And then over here in your developer dashboard on PayPal, on the left side, you'll see My Apps and Credentials. And right here, make sure you have Sandbox highlighted, otherwise it's going to be a production app. And create a Sandbox app. I already did this. It's called Shirt Shack in my case. And this is what we're going to need to process payments in the Sandbox environment, which is a completely fake environment where you can process as many charges as you want and it won't actually go through in real life. So it's a good way to experiment and test things out. So go ahead and do that. And when you do, you will be redirected to something like this, where we need our client ID and the client secret. So let's begin with the client ID. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to move it over to my t-shirt store and create an environment variable out of it. So we want to go to the env file, which is our environment variable, and I'm going to create an environment variable called ppClientID and equals, and then the value from the PayPal dashboard. And then I'm going to create another one called ppClientSecret, and I'm going to head back here. The secret is right here. You want to just click on that and then copy it. And again, this is a completely fake account or a fake environment, so none of these are real. This is just for testing. And then we have our client ID and our client secret. And then if you head over here towards the sandbox and click on accounts, because this is a sandbox account, which is not real, we need to create basically fake accounts for the purposes of testing. These are non-real accounts that you create on the sandbox environment that you can use for testing on sandbox accounts as much as you want without actually incurring any real charges and doing anything real. So PayPal should set you up with 2 right out of the box. It'll set you up with what's called a facilitator account and then a buyer account. The facilitator account is the account that you use to accept payments. So this is basically your business account. And then the buyer account is what you use to test purchases. So this will be your quote-unquote visitor, your customer. You can create as many more additional accounts as you want. So I've created a few additional ones here just for pure testing purposes. And each account can have a different amount of money, different source of funding. So if you want to try something where the user doesn't have enough money or the credit card gets declined, things of that sort, you can create different accounts for those purposes. So make sure you have the facilitator account and the buyer account. And I think PayPal automatically assigns a password. If you want to change that, you click on View or Edit, and then you want to head over to the password right here, and then you want to change that, and then that way you don't have to remember a weird password that PayPal gives you. Okay, so make sure you have all that set up, and then we can go back to our code and begin integrating the PayPal button. So we want to do that on the individual shirt page. If we scroll down to the bottom, actually I'm just going to collapse that. And beneath the scripts, what we need to do is import another script, which is going to be the PayPal JavaScript SDK. So this is a text JavaScript import, and the source is the PayPal.com. It's the SDK, the JavaScript version, and we need to pass in the client ID as a URL request parameter right here. You can copy and paste the actual value right here, but what I normally do is I pass it in as a mustache template variable. So pp client ID like that. And then what that means is we have to go back to our route, this particular page, which is right here, and we need to pass in to the data the pp client ID, which is from the env variables, which is going to be this value right here. And that will pass it into your template like that. So make sure you have that properly set up. And then let's head over to our terminal. My server is already running, so we can just go ahead and test it by going back here and reloading the page. And let's see here. I'm going to reload, and I'm getting a client error. Oh, because I forgot to actually render the button. So we're actually not getting any errors here. Everything here is actually set to go, but I didn't actually render anything. So let's go ahead and do that. So we set up another script tag, which we're going to run on the page. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create a function, a self-calling function, which basically invokes as soon as the page loads. So load PayPal button. So now if I reload the page, we should see that right here. So now it's time to actually load the button. So here, this PayPal JavaScript SDK gives us a global PayPal object, which we can use to load the PayPal button. So here's the global PayPal object, which is given to us by this SDK right here. And we use that to initialize a PayPal button and then load it onto the page. So that's using the buttons API call. And then the buttons API call takes a style argument, which has a couple of parameters that we can use to configure the button. So we have, I'm going to use a large button here. It's going to have a horizontal layout. Color is going to be blue. The shape, we want a rectangle shape. And the label will be checkout. Okay, so here we're just configuring some visual options on the button. We then need to tell PayPal to render that button, and that's going to be using the PayPal button div tag that we set up earlier a few minutes ago in the video. So this value right here corresponds to this ID attribute right there. So now this will actually mount the button onto our page, assuming everything is properly set up. And here we have actually two buttons. Here's for people who maintain credit balances on PayPal. We don't want to use this. So we can actually tell PayPal in the JavaScript SDK add a URL parameter and disable. We want to disable that funding source, and we want to disable the credit funding source. So that will get rid of that, and that gives us the PayPal button. So now this is how we do a simple setup on PayPal. We have the client ID loaded into the JavaScript SDK. So if we open this up and scroll to the bottom, you'll see the PayPal import with the client ID from our env variables. And here we're loading the PayPal button with some basic visual configuration, the blue and the rectangular shape and things like that. We have to add a few more configuration options here to get this to work. So this is just one big JSON file. Let's go ahead and set this up. We want to basically we have to bind two main things. We need to bind a create order function, which takes a data and actions arguments, and then we also need an approve callback. So it's on approve. And then here we have data and actions as well. So at a bare minimum, we're going to need these two callback functions, and we'll do the first one and then the second one. So the create order, what's going to happen here is we have to tell PayPal to do a post request to our server, which will return order details. So this does not actually process any orders. So it's to be very clear, this does not actually run any charges. That doesn't happen until the user actually hits OK. So we have to send a post request to our server to create an order with a price and an order ID, things like that. And then that will return to the button what the user is purchasing. So let's go ahead and do that. So in the routes folder over here, we need to create a new route. I'm going to call it order.js. Let's go ahead and just set up the basic requirements. Here we're going to set up a post request, and we want to say create. And this is where the PayPal button that we set up is going to send a request to. So right here is where we need to actually create the specific order to make this work. However, before we do that, let's go ahead to app.js and import this route. And then let's mount it onto this path right here. So /order, and then in the actual order route, it'll be /create. So I'm going to do a test handler as well for a get right here. This is just purely for testing, and we're going to return a simple JSON object. This is the order route, and let's just see if this works, just to make sure that the route is properly set up. So we have our server still running. Let's head over to localhost 3000, and then we want to do order and then create. Here it is right here. Great. So now we need to actually connect the order post handler to create a PayPal order. So this is where most of the work is done, at least for this video. So in order to do that, we need to import the PayPal server SDK. So so let's go ahead and do that right now. So it's going to be npm install --save, and then we want to do @PayPal, and then it's checkout server SDK. And this is the library, the PayPal library we're going to use to process orders on the server. So make sure you have that properly spelled. And then we're going to need this inside the order handler. So head back to order.js, and we need to import PayPal, which is the checkout library we just installed. And here we need to, this is what we use to actually create the order that this button is going to call right here. So let's go ahead and do that. So first thing I'm going to do is create a small helper method which will create the PayPal client. So that we can interact with the PayPal server. So it's a little confusing if this is your first time, but if you do it enough times, you'll get used to it. So basically what we need is we need to interact with the PayPal server, and in order to do that we need the environment variables, which is these two right here, the client ID and the client secret. So we need to grab the client ID, I'm going to use some destructuring here, and the client secret from the credentials. This is basically the env variables. And then we need to take the PayPal library, the PayPal core library, and extract the proper environment from it. So we need to get the sandbox environment, the live production environment, and the PayPal HTTP client from the PayPal core library, like that. So here we're just destructuring a few items out of the PayPal core library, which is going to be what we use to interact with the PayPal server. And then we need to actually create the environment, the PayPal environment. If the env is dev, which is what we're going to use today, we need to create a new sandbox environment using the client ID and the client secret. If the environment is live, we instantiate a live environment like so. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Let me just toggle this so you can see the whole thing. So here we're creating an instance of the PayPal environment based on whether or not it's the environment is dev or production. We're only going to do dev in this video, so we're always going to be in the sandbox environment. But if you do deploy this to production, this env value will be prod, and you'll get the live environment, which will actually process real charges. So just make sure you're careful with that. And then we simply need to return a new PayPal HTTP client, and this is the actual tool. This is the actual client tool that we use to interface with the PayPal SDK, or the PayPal server. So here's how we actually interact with the PayPal server. So hopefully that makes sense. But basically, what we're doing here in this helper method is grabbing the PayPal environment that we need to interact with the PayPal server. So now on the actual create, what we do next is we have to create a request, and that's done through the PayPal orders API, and that's orders create request. So here we're creating an order, a PayPal order, and again, we're not actually processing the order here. This is important to remember that we're not actually running any charges. A charge doesn't happen until the user authorizes the charge. So this just creates the order without actually processing any payment. And we have to do a couple small configuration options here. Don't worry too much about what this means. It's not too important for this video. And then here we tell it we just want to capture the order. And then we want to tell, here's where we tell PayPal the key information about the order. So here's where we tell the amount, and that's going to be currency code. Obviously, if you're doing a different country, just make sure you use your currency code. And then the value I'm going to say is, for now, I'm just going to say it's $5, 5 USD. So here is where the most important stuff happens, is where we tell PayPal the amount of the actual order. And again, just to be very clear, we're not actually processing an order here. We're not charging anyone. We're just creating the order. So let's go ahead and actually finish that out. So we want to do a try catch here. We need to create a credentials object where we pass in the client ID, and this is going to be from the environment variables. So that's going to be from this right here. So we need the client ID and then the client secret. This is client secret. So we have our credentials object right here, and then here we have to actually create the order. We're going to use async await. So go back up to the top and add an async prefix here, and then right here we're going to do await, and then we tell the PayPal client, we instantiate a PayPal client using the credentials, and we pass in the dev, and be aware that we're using this right here. So we pass in the credentials, and we told it to be, it's going to be the dev environment, so that it passes us the sandbox back, right? And then this is going to give us an object that can directly interface with PayPal. So we can just tell it to execute the request, this request right here, like that. Actually, I'm going to just change this back. Execute this request, and this is the async call. This is an asynchronous operation. So when that's done, it will create the order, and then we can send back a JSON object with an order ID, and then that's going to be the order, and then the result, and then the ID. And that should be good enough for creating the order. However, we should do a error handling just to be safe. Okay, so that was a bit much. Hopefully you caught all that, but before I go back and explain some of this, let me run the code on the client side and make sure nothing broke on the client side. Okay, so now the PayPal button is loaded. Now it's important to understand that this order API endpoint that we created here will not be called until we actually click the button. But don't forget, we didn't tell PayPal to call that endpoint yet. So as far as PayPal is concerned, this doesn't exist, right? So we have to tell it to call our endpoint so that it can get the order from our server. So here we're going to use fetch for that, because fetch is built in to most browsers these days. So here we're going to tell it to actually go to the order endpoint and then the create that we just set up. So this is on our server. It's very important to understand that. And then we have to pass in some configuration options here. This is a fetch API, and it's going to be a post. We have to pass in some headers. It's going to be content type. It's going to be application JSON. And then we pass in, actually we don't need to pass in any body here. We can just leave that alone. So that should be good for that. And then tell it on the callback, there's going to be a response. And the way fetch works is you have to convert the response into JSON, and then that will be the final response. And then here we tell PayPal what the order ID is. So this is the order ID, like so, that we're passing in, or that we're returning right there. So that's where the two come together. And this order ID then gets binded to the button, which then knows what to load on the prompt when the user clicks the PayPal button. So let's go ahead and test this. Server is still running. I'm going to reload the page. Let's go ahead and close this out. And let's see what we get. Oh, we got an error here. Let's see. Expected an order ID to be passed. So let's see what we got here. We got the order create right there. There's the post request, right? So went to our order create, and we have it right here. And let's see the order ID. And right here, I made a typo. You see that? There's no period. So my client ID didn't get passed through to the credentials. So the whole thing failed because my client ID was not successfully passed through. So there's definitely that would cause a mistake. Let's make sure I didn't make any other mistakes, which is certainly possible. So we have our sandbox, live, PayPal client. There's the core, grab the environment. Okay. Order result ID. Looks good, looks good, looks good. Okay, let's try that. So now we reload and hit the PayPal order endpoint. And now notice how it's asking us to sign in to PayPal, but look at the URL. This is a sandbox account. So what this tells you is that we're not actually hitting the live API or the live website. This is a sandbox website. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to grab one of my fake accounts in Sandbox right here. So this is one of my fake buyer accounts, and I'm going to go back and log in to the fake buyer account. And notice here this is $5, and this is a fake person, fake everything. This is $5 over here, and that's based on the value I passed in here. So let's say I want to make that $6, right? I can change that to 6 and then go back. I'm going to cancel this transaction, and then I'm going to reload the page and do it again. And now this is $6. So here's where I can go ahead and pay. I can go ahead and use a fake credit card or PayPal balance or whatever. And this is all fake because again it's on Sandbox. So this is all fake transactions. This is how you set up the actual button and the initial server flow on your end. I'm going to wrap it up here for now because this is a bit much for one video, but in the next video what we're going to do is handle the actual approval process. So at some point the visitor is going to press submit payment or pay now and hopefully actually purchase a t-shirt, and then that's going to hook into this callback right here, and over here is where we want to determine what to do on the server end when a payment is actually processed. So in the next video we're going to take care of that, actually processing payments. This video is focused on just setting everything up. Notwithstanding that one mistake, it was a pretty smooth flow. Hopefully this makes sense. The first time you do this it can be a little confusing, so I would recommend watching this video at least twice and try to do this again a couple times so you understand what's going on here. And that way you can use this for other projects if you want to set up a PayPal checkouts flow. So that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, welcome back to the t-shirt tutorial series here on Turbo 360. In the previous video we set up the PayPal integration on the front end here, and we created an order on the back end, but we have yet to process the order. In addition, the order generated on the back end right now is a static order. It's the same thing every single time. So in this video, we're going to actually connect it so that the actual correct values from the shirt price show up on the order here rather than the same number every time, and then go ahead and process our orders on the Sandbox environment. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to run the local dev server. And here I am at the end of the previous video, and here's the PayPal button. Everything looks good. If we go back to our code in the orders route that we set up, you probably noticed that we have the same value that's being passed through every single time. Right now it's $6 every time, but the t-shirt is $15 in this case. So we need to somehow get the $15 value showing up here, and furthermore it has to change based on whatever shirt page we happen to be on. So another one might be $30 for this one, and so forth and so on. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. First thing we need to do is head back to our shirt template, and in the create order callback function on the button, what we need to do is somehow pass to the endpoint in the JSON data, in the request data, that we want to have an order for this particular shirt. So the shirt, we need to somehow pass in the shirt ID or the data itself in here somehow. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the PayPal button and add some parameters in here which will uniquely identify the shirt that the user is wanting to purchase. There's a variety of ways this can be achieved. The way I'm going to show in this video is probably one of the more conventional and also pretty easy to achieve. So we're going to add a new attribute here called data product ID. It's going to be anti-string for now, and then we're going to take the mustache template holder and say shirt.id. Now this will populate because if you recall, in our main route for the shirt page, we have the shirt being passed through to the data right here, and the shirt has its own ID. So right here, it'll populate with the value of that identifier. So if I reload this page, and then I go to the view, and then I find the PayPal button, here is the shirt ID, data prod ID. And this is the ID that uniquely identifies this t-shirt. So one way we can confirm that, if you want to just double check real quick, is we have a shirts endpoint, and this is the ID. So we can just do a copy and paste, and this ID right here does correspond with the t-shirt that we're currently looking at. So everything is all set to go from that standpoint. So now what we need to do is we need to head down to the create order callback and somehow pass that ID to this endpoint. So what I'm going to do is grab the PayPal button. I'm using the PayPal button ID. I'm going to take the attribute called data prod ID, the attribute we just assigned, and then we're going to, for now, I'm just going to console log it just to make sure that it's actually going through. So let's say shirt ID, and let's see what we get here when we click the button. So let's go ahead and reload. And there it is right there. So we can use that to pass in the shirt data to our order endpoint. So let's go ahead and set that up. Let's dismiss that. We can pass in a data key here, and this has to be stringified JSON. And we're going to say ID, let's say shirt, and then we pass in the shirt ID, like so. And so what we're doing here is we're passing in the ID of the shirt to the order, the create order endpoint that we set up in the bulk of the last video. And using that, we're going to then fetch the shirt and then take the price and then return that price instead of the hard-coded value of $6. I actually made a small mistake here. There should be body, so my apologies. So this is the request body that's going to this endpoint right here. So if we head over to our order endpoint, we can grab the shirt ID from the body, the request body. That's this right here. I'm actually going to just make it the same ID value like that. So that way we can do this instead. Okay. And then from here, we need to then fetch the shirt itself. So let's go ahead and import our controllers. Okay, so our controllers, remember, is where we make all of our requests, CRUD operation requests. Here we have the shirt ID. So what we can do is we can say, we can grab the shirt controller, which is going to be the shirt, and this is an instance. And then we can get the actual shirt by telling the controller to query get by ID. So we're going to use this call right here, the get by ID. So, and that's going to be the shirt ID we pass in, and then the shirt has a value called price, and that's the actual number we want to pass in here. So instead of this hard-coded value right here, we want to do the we want to do backticks shirt price like that, and then this will pass through the actual price of the shirt rather than $6 every single time. So let's see how that sets up. Let's go ahead and run the page again, and it should be this time $15. So let's see what we get. Okay, make sure you're on Sandbox. This is my merchant account. We want to use the test account for the buyer, so I have my test account set up right there. 4, 5. Let's see. And now it's $15. And this is because of the query we just did on over here. So this is how we can dynamically render the price based on what page we're on. So I'm going to turn this off, make sure the server is still running, and try a different page. So this one is $30. Let's see what we get here. And there we go. And so this is how we can make a dynamic order response based on the item being purchased by the visitor. Again, always make sure you're on Sandbox. This wouldn't even work if you're not on Sandbox. The whole thing would just give you errors. But so here we're on Sandbox, which means they can go ahead and execute the purchase and it'll run a purchase on Sandbox. Let's go ahead and do that, but before we do, I'm going to go back to the shirt template, and inside the approve, so when the user presses purchase or pay for the item, this is the callback that the button will invoke when the purchase is successfully processed. So here we have two arguments, data and actions, and what we want to do is we want to capture the order. So actions, order. So inside the actions we have the order. This is the order that was just processed, and then capture. and then we want to pass in details here, like so, and then this argument here is what the PayPal response will give us with the actual details of the transaction. So here is where will get called after the transaction has been processed. So we can do a console log here, order processed, and just take a look at the details and see what we get. So again, it's important to understand that this right here, this callback will happen after the order is processed. So at this point, the order is done. At this point, the order is not done, right here. So it's important to understand when certain things happen. And this is on the approves. This will only get called if the order is successful. There is an on fail callback as well. We won't worry about that in this video, but there are more callbacks you can bind to this button for other situations, like an on fail scenario. So let's go ahead and see what we get when the order is processed. So I'm going to head back to the first one, and we're going to click on that. $15, which is the right price. This is a fake account on Sandbox. We're going to use the PayPal balance. We can also use fake credit cards and whatnot. Go ahead and click Pay Now. And here is the order processed callback. And here we get a lot of information about what the nature of the order. I'm going to go to a nifty JSON viewer page. Actually, not this one. Let's do a JSON formatter. Yeah, this one's better. Okay, and then we can just paste in the JSON right here and just quickly see what's going on in this callback data. So here we have the status, the timestamps, the email of the payer ID, stuff like that. How much the item cost, the currency. This is the facilitator account, the merchant account. So this is what we will be using to check the actual payment, whether or not it went through, and the shipping data and all that other stuff. So here, everything is given to us, returned to us, that we might want to use for confirming the purchase. So now we can go ahead and do that on our Sandbox account using the merchant account that we set up. So what you want to do is head over to sandbox.paypal.com, which is really just a fake version of PayPal. And we can, here, I'm going to actually, rather than log out, I'm going to do it on a different browser. So if we want to go to sandbox.paypal.com, the reason I'm using a different browser is because I am now logging into a merchant account that's separate from the buyer account. So these are two different accounts. So this is the merchant account, the account of the business that accepted the payment, and then I'm logging into that. And you'll see here is a $15 charge from John Doe, which is the customer account that I used to purchase the t-shirt for $15. So this is a successful transaction. This is a transaction that went through on Sandbox and was completed a few moments ago. So this is how we can create and process a payment using PayPal. What we want to do as well is we want to keep the order on our server as well. So we want to create a record on our server. So what we want to do is I'm going to turn this off, and let's create a new model and controller for order so that we can also track it on our backend. So we want to do turbo resource order. So we just created an order model and controller. I'm going to import the controller to the index right away so I don't forget. And now that we have that set up, let's head over to our model and let's fill out some of the details here. So we have an order, right? So we have the ID, shirt ID, which is going to be a string. Let's see, what else do we need for this? We're probably going to want the order ID from PayPal. So that's going to be another string, PayPal order ID. And let's go with customer email, just in case you need to contact the customer for any reason. Okay, so we're going to go with these three for now. And let's go ahead and fill this out. Let's see here on the order route. What we want to do next is we want to create another endpoint for complete. So router post and then this is complete. So this is going to be called on the order success callback. And here in the shirt template, right here is where we can send that request. So I'm just going to copy the fetch call that we did earlier. And instead of create, we want complete, like that. This is going to be a post, and we want to pass in the shirt ID, and that's going to come from the attribute, again, that we attached. So we want to do that, grab the shirt ID, and just grab the attribute again, like that, and then pass it through to here, the shirt ID. We also need to pass through the PayPal order ID and the customer email. So PayPal order ID and the customer email. Let's grab those. So the PayPal order ID is in the details, and it's right there. It's just ID. So it's details ID, and the customer email is details.payer.email address. So details.payer.email address. And so this will be sent to the order complete endpoint, which then we can let's see here. Okay. This is not the best organization because we have a promise inside of a promise. So I'm going to take this out. We have a promise right there. Put that back right here. And then these callbacks should be removed. And they should be binded to this right here. Like that. Okay, that's a better way of handling these promises. The other way probably would have worked, but it's kind of sloppy code. This is a better way to handle it. Okay, let's go ahead and run this and see how it looks. And we don't need this right here. Order completed. Okay, so what we're going to do now is head back to the order route, and we have our complete handler here. I am going to console log the request body, and for now we're simply going to return it. So this is going to do nothing of consequence on the actual database, but I just want to make sure the data is successfully passing through. Okay, let's try it again. I'm already logged in, which is nice. Same price. Let's go ahead and pay now. And order completed. And here is the data that's being passed in from the client side. So we have the shirt ID, PayPal order ID, customer email. So that's right here. So now we can use that. So let's go ahead and destructure this. And the customer email from the body. And now we can use this to create the order. So we have our controllers over here. We want to grab the order controller, and that is right there, and it's an instance. And then we want to, this is going to be an async await. So we're calling the post on the order controller, which is a create command, and we want to pass in the shirt ID, PayPal order ID, and customer email. So we can just, shirt ID, we can just take all three of these pretty much as is and just pass those right through. And then we want to return the order like that. And make sure this is await. And that should store the order in our database, at least locally. So let's go ahead and run this. And let's try it again. Okay, I'm still logged in. Let's go ahead and execute that. Order processed, order completed. This time the order payload or the response created the order in our database. So we should be able to take a look at the temp file, and here is the order in our local DB. So the last thing to do now is deploy this. I'll pause the video while this is going up. Okay, the deployment is up. Let's head over to the staging URL and take a look. Okay, looks good. Let's test the shirt. So this one is $10. I'm going to open the terminal, the console, just so we see any errors if they do pop up. $10, that's the correct price, so that's working well. This is all on Sandbox, everything is still Sandbox. And let's hit Pay Now to execute the payment. And we have order completed. Everything there looks good. This is the JSON. But now we should be able to head to our Turbo management page. And let's take a look at the site, T-shirt store. Don't worry about this, I'll show you how to fix this in the next video. Let's head to the CMS. And now we have an order option here because we added an order to the CMS set of resources. And here we have the order of the transaction we just processed. So everything was successful, everything went through, everything is working well from a transactional process. So that's it as far as creating simple payments on PayPal. Hopefully you got all that working. It's a bit much if this is your first time, so make sure that you go through the video a couple times until everything is working on your end. But this is certainly how you process basic transactions on PayPal using the JavaScript SDK and what's called the checkouts flow. In the next video, I want to do some touch-up work here and add a little bit of finishing touches to make this look a little bit nicer if you decide you want to actually use this project in a real situation. So so yeah, hopefully you got all that working. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Check. Hey guys, welcome back to our t-shirt shop tutorial series here on Turbo 360. In the previous videos, we set up the payments flow and we processed the payment for an actual purchase on the website using PayPal. And that pretty much covers the core functionality of the site, but in this last and final video, we're just going to do some touch-up work, some final touches to sort of polish off the rest of the app, the site, to make it more navigable. So here's what we have so far, and for example, on the home page, you can see the t-shirts loaded through the CMS, but we're not able to click on any of these to actually go to the t-shirt page itself. So far, we still have to literally enter the URL in the browser, like so, to view the t-shirt itself, which is obviously a poor user experience. And also another thing we're going to do in this video is when the user actually purchases the shirt, we want to have some sort of loading indicator so that the user is not staring at sort of a blank UI while the purchase is being processed. So we will do those two things to kind of finish up the site, add some finishing touches, and that should complete this tutorial. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's head over to the home page. Here I am at the end of the last video. The server is already running, so you can go ahead and start your server as well. And I'm going to head over to the home page, the home template, the home mustache template, and then if you scroll down to where the shirts are loaded using the mustache templating iterator, you'll notice that these shirts aren't linked to the actual t-shirt itself. So here is each shirt being loaded from this TMS, and this link right here, let's see here, how are we going to do this? The image right here is this image here, these over here. So let's wrap all of these inside of an anchor tag. An anchor tag, which right now just goes to nowhere, like that. Let's close it up over here, and let's reload the home page, and let's make sure that these are linked. So these are now linked, but they go nowhere. Now, you may recall from one of the earlier videos, video 2 or 3, I can't remember, when we set up the CMS, each t-shirt had a slug attribute associated with it, which uniquely identifies the t-shirt. If you go to the shirt page, this part right here is the slug of the t-shirt, and that's how we navigate to the shirt page. So what we can do is take the anchor tag right here and do shirt, and then put in the slug value right there, and then when we reload the home page, these images are now linked to their individual shirt page like that. And that makes it much more easy to navigate from point A to point B. It's what the user would expect anyway, so this makes it a better user experience. So that takes care of that. I'm also going to link the title down here to the same page, because sometimes a user might click on this instead of the image itself. Let's go ahead and do that over here. The anchor tag itself should be inside of a p tag. Actually, it's probably better if we just convert the p tag into an anchor tag and give it the same href. Like that. Let's see how that looks. Okay, we lost the capitalization. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the text inside in a span tag, because you can apply classes and styles to span tags. And there we go. Okay, let's click on this and see what happens. Great. Okay, looks good. So the home page is ready to go to actually navigate to, sorry about that, to the individual shirt page. And the next thing I'm going to do is head over to the actual shirt page right here, which is what we set up in the previous video to process payments using the PayPal SDK that we did. And what we want to do now is when the user clicks on this PayPal button, we want to get rid of this. Let's see here. We want to get rid of this and have it go to a loading indicator when the user actually purchases the shirt. So when the user purchases the shirt, which happens when you click the Pay Now, the Pay Now right here. This button, when I click on this, will trigger the on approve right there. So what we want to do is we want to load a loading indicator, basically an animated image, an animated GIF, which indicates to the user that the order is still being processed. And we want that loading indicator to continue until we get to here where it says order completed. That's the main thing. So let's see here. Let's do a create order happens right here. Okay, So the first thing we need is the actual loading GIF, which is right here. I have this already picked out, and this will be downloadable in the description of this video. So you can just click on the description link and you can grab it from there. And then we're going to use this as our loading indicator. So the first thing we're going to do is, let's see here, we're going to add this to our static assets. So open up your t-shirt store and then your public directory, and I wanted to throw this into the images directory. Let's see, let's throw it in right here. It's loading a .gif, and then we can just confirm whether or not it works by going to another browser tab and then opening up IMG and then loading .gif, and here is going to be the loading indicator that we use. So that's how that's going to look. So basically when we click on this button, it's going to, let's see here, where is the PayPal button? That's this guy right here. Okay, so let's see how we're going to do this. Let's create a loading indicator right here. Okay, so right now it's going to show up all the time. Obviously we don't want that, but we're going to just swap this out and then replace it with this. So let's do a ID and then loading indicator. And for now, we're going to set the style to visibility hidden. So it doesn't show up at first. So it's there, but it's not visible because we set the visibility to hidden. And then we gave it an ID loading indicator. So let's have it show up. Let's see here when we create the order right here. So let's do let's do loading indicator, and then we want to set the style. Actually, this is going to be CSS, and then visibility. And then this time we want it to do inherit, which basically means set it back to the original, what it was originally. So right now it's still hidden, and then if I click on this, you'll see it show up. You see the spinning indicators over here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the PayPal button here, and then we're going to set the visibility of this guy to hidden. So we're basically just swapping the two. So if I reload and then I press this right here, oh, it did not go away. Let's see what happens. Let's try putting it over here, PayPal button. Yeah, it's this right here. Okay. Okay, let's try it again. Huh. Let's see what happens here. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'm going to make a minor adjustment. Instead of visibility hidden here, we're going to do opacity, which is basically the same thing. We're just going to remove the visibility of it and draw it down to 0. I'm not sure why visibility here isn't working, but it's not a big deal because we can just change the opacity instead, and we can use that to basically hide the PayPal UI. So when I reload here, I can click on this, and the PayPal button will at least be concealed, and then we can show the loading indicator here, and that's what we're going to use to indicate to the user that the payment's being processed. Now if I go back, if I cancel out of it, you'll notice that this is still loading, right? So we want to actually say add a callback here called on cancel. And let's make sure that that's what's being called when the user cancels. So let's open up the console and just do a console log right here. And then let's say purchase canceled. And if we get that callback, we can remove the loading indicator there. So here I'm loading the payment module, and then I can press that, and then purchase canceled. So that means here is where we can sort of reverse these two. So we want the opacity back to 0, and then we want to set this to hidden. Basically just restore it back to the original UI. So let's go ahead and try that out. And then let's cancel it out here. And then everything is back to normal. That's exactly what we want. And so now let's go ahead and I'm just going to comment this out. Do the same thing on the approve, but here on the approve callback, this is where the user actually purchases the shirt. It runs through this order complete here, and then it returns all the way down to here. And then right here is where we want to, this time, we actually don't want to restore the PayPal button because the shirt has been purchased, so we want to leave that out actually. And then we want to set the loading indicator. We don't want to hide it. Instead here, we want to just change the entire inner contents to something else like thanks, your order will arrive soon. Something like that. And this is more of a visual confirmation that the t-shirt was successfully purchased. And instead of the loading indicator, it'll show that little bit of text. If you want to make it bigger, we can do like a header 1 or something like that. I think that would be better for the user experience. Let's try that. Let's see how that looks. So I'm going to get this going, and you'll see that this is already loading. As always, make sure you're in Sandbox. This is $15, which does correlate to the price of the shirt. $15. Let's go ahead and actually execute the purchase this time. So pay now. And notice how it's still loading because we're sending the data to the back end, and now the order was processed successfully. And we see this, thanks, your order will arrive soon. And that's this happening right here. So that's the full sort of flow. I think this is a better user experience. It confirms to the user visually that the shirt was successfully purchased. Obviously, you can make this wherever you want. And yeah, and that's it. So that one minor gaffe notwithstanding, this is going to be how we polish up the app. And as always, let's do one final deploy just to make sure everything works on staging as it does on localhost. So let's go ahead and do a deploy. I'm going to pause the video. Okay, the deployment is up. Let's go ahead and check it out over on staging, and let's see how it looks. Okay, here are the shirts from the CMS. Let's click on the first one. Here's the PayPal checkout link. Price is $15, and when I click on the PayPal button, notice the loading indicator. We're still on Sandbox. The price matches up. I'm going to cancel this, and we're back over here. Okay, great. So that pretty much confirms that everything works on staging, same as it does on localhost. Hopefully you got that working on your end, and we're going to wrap up the tutorial here. Hopefully you got all this working. If you do want to switch this over into production so you can actually use this to process real payments, just head over to your PayPal developer portal and create a production application and swap out the client ID and the client secret, and then you'll be processing real payments. So you can use this for an actual store, t-shirt store, if you want to. No reason why you couldn't. And hopefully you got that working. And yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next tutorial. Take care.